Welcome everybody to your Wednesday night most funnest thing ever, which is Vibe Rant. I am here, beardless and fearless. Yes, I am the real Chance. I just wanted a less itchy face and get some sunshine on that area of skin. So we've got tonight the intrepid host of Rogue Ways, energy healer extraordinaire, incredible author, so many other awesome things and beings that you embody. Love you so much. Welcome back to
Aw.
Vibe Rant, Lindsay. How
I
you
love you
doing?
too. It's so good to be here. It's so fun. I'm glad we're doing this for this momentous occasion and more. And then it just so happens to be a wild day as well.
It is such a wild day. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Well, okay. Can I just say that I didn't realize that this many people don't know what the Georgia Guidestones even really are. Someone on one of my posts was like, when did this happen? And I was like, today. And they were like, oh, this world just sickens me. I was like, wait, no. This is not like a monument that we all came together to create and like honor something or doesn't mark like a historical moment for us. This is just the psychopaths talking about how they want to kill and enslave us. That's all. Like, we should be glad it's gone. I think some people just don't know, and then it makes me forget. And now I'm remembering how many people are, because COVID. I don't know if we're even allowed to say that word anymore, because this
Just say
whole thing,
cooties. That's
cooties,
what I
has
do. Cooties.
woken up so many people that they haven't reached back 40 years or 20 years or even 5 years or 10 years into the past. So yeah, in case anyone doesn't know, it's a good thing that the Georgia Guidestones are gone.
Yeah, I think that we should get into that. That might be a great topic of conversation to like synchronistically analyze some of the symbolism around it. I didn't go deep on it, but I saw, man, like every chat group I'm a part of on Telegram was just like on fire with this demolition that happened. It's very interesting too, because one of them got blown up and then there were two standing and then they knocked down the two towers. It's very symbolic.
That's interesting. You know what else? So it was the first thing I saw when I woke up. And so I was posting it around, but no one wakes up at 6 a.m. like I do or whatever. So I don't think anyone saw my posts and they were, that's cool or whatever. But then, so my first thought and my first instinct in the few places I posted it at like 7 a.m. this morning, I said, I don't know. My first thought literally very loudly in my head was act of God. And I was like, maybe it was an act of God. And then the first thing I thought after that was that George Floyd mural, which got struck by lightning. And I was like, God is fucking pissed. Like, you're using all this bullshit to cause all this strife and harm. But I was like, well, probably not. And then eventually that video came out. That was maybe at like 11 a.m. The video was posted of the actual moment of destruction, allegedly. And if that's a real video, I was like, that's crazy fast. Like, nothing exploded. There's nothing exploding in this video at all. But there is a bright flash and then it's demolished, and I saw movement off to like the left of the screen coming into the right. And I was like, well, maybe it's some really exotic weaponry, right? Because this like flash comes in like lightning speed.
Yeah, if somebody
Keyword
has
being
that clip and
lightning.
wants to forward it to the Vibe Rant call-in line, we can show it on screen.
It's in the Rogue chat. If anyone's in there too, you can just post it over there, share it from there. But so then somebody posted someone who broke that down frame by frame, which frame by frame is like what, it's 1/3 of a second, I think each frame is, or something. I think it's 33 times per second actually. So anyway, so it's like 1/33 of a second is it one frame. So from one frame to the next frame, it was gone. And all you see is a bright light, and it has all the characteristics of lightning. So it could be like directed energy weapon, but directed energy weapon, we don't generally see that exact same color pattern and movement pattern. The directed energy weapon goes straight to its source, like done. This came from like over here and then bounced over, all within like 2 frames of the video. So if that video is real, it is actually an act of God, and this lightning fucking destroyed this goddamn hellish fucking monument. Like, woo, go God.
Well, the weirdest part might be beyond how that happened or whatever it was that happened. Act of God sounds great.
Sounds good.
The weird part is like they were ready to come in and demolish the rest of it with an executive order and everything within hours of it happening. So
those guys
gives
move
you
fast though.
one of two indications, like either they were planning to do this today anyway, in some sense, or they were ready to go somehow, or they're like, oh, what just happened needs to be covered up ASAP.
Because someone was saying too, they're like, well, they're not going to want to go with act of God, so they're going to want to make it look like an explosion. But there was already so much video within. People sent their fucking. Sorry, I forget if we can swear or not. We can, right?
Yeah, fire away.
All right. their drones in to get the footage, and like you couldn't hide it anymore. So even though they demolished it to hide any actual follow-up evidence, like we had already had everything we needed to show. At the very least, there's no scorching or burning. This is not traditional explosives. So it has to be either lightning or directed energy weapon or something even more exotic than that I just don't know about or don't understand, right?
Okay, someone
yeah,
sent me this.
Video.
Here we go. It does happen really fast.
Boom, gone. You can see something to the left of it, like really briefly, right? Which is why I thought something was flying into the left. But like someone broke down, lightning makes lights around it brighten and
Really?
Possibly explode.
Oh,
Yeah, because
true.
they gain electricity too. Because the whole field is electrified, not just the, line that we see.
I wonder if that happens in a directed energy weapon as well. If it's that kind of thing. I mean, I've never been around one, so I'm not sure, but
the directed energy weapon, like I said, most likely at least wouldn't come from the left to the right. It would just hit its target. That's what made me lean towards lightning as well.
Well, it hit just the one pillar. And it makes me wonder what the significance of that particular pillar was. Like which was the text on that one,
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
Because if it's a directed energy weapon, why wouldn't, if it was a traditional explosive, why wouldn't you just fucking
do the
leave
whole
it
thing? Yeah,
demolish it to glass.
And like that comment that Chance just put up was saying there was a lightning storm exactly in that area according to radars and weather stuff. Like, so it's not in any way. I think it was a fucking act of God. I literally saw it and loudly in my mind, act of God. Not like bragging or whatever, but I have some psychic skills. But I doubt myself all the time. Any of you out there, you all know, we all know, like even our intuition and everything, we're like, nah, I don't know. I'm not sure. So I did that same thing. But after I saw this lightning breakdown, I was like, I really think that's it. I'm just going to trust myself on this one.
Yeah, it's so interesting too that it's like right when Mars hits Taurus, Mars goes into Taurus, and the very next thing that happens is the Georgia Guidestones get taken down, which is like definitely sort of feels warlike the way that it happened. And they're all about guidelines for the Earth. So it's almost like the Earth was rejecting that when it was energized with that Mars and Taurus moment. And the other, not to take us off topic, but this is definitely in line with our winning, totally winning. And maybe Lindsay can give us more updates onto how and why we're winning against the technocrats.
Yeah.
But in the Netherlands, right, the farmers there are going wild with a way bigger trucker rally than we've seen elsewhere, including tractors, more tractors than truckers. So as soon as Mars goes into Taurus, we get battle tractors.
That's so rad.
It could not be more Mars and Taurus than that.
And did you see them towing they're literally towing police cars out of the vicinities of the protests. So the tractors will go up and grab the police cars and just take them away. Like, no, you don't get to be here. And better than even that, I think, just like January 6th, when they had agent provocateurs show up, enough people now are understanding that this is the pattern. If you have any kind of a successful demonstration, they do two things. One, they infiltrate with agent provocateurs, try to make it go super violent and south so that they can have an excuse to rush in and shut you down. And if they can't do that, they try to take out or become your leadership of each of your organizations that are running the protests. So enough people know this now that we saw in both uprisings, that people were like, look, this guy's a Fed, get this guy out of here. And then people will just get them out of there. And I'm like, this is all we've ever had to do, is that they can't actually stop us. We just have to know their tactics. And they only have one bag of tricks, and they've been using that bag of tricks forever. So we know them. They're clear.
Yeah, the super scary Capitol riot January 6th was probably, as messed up as it was, one of the best things that could happen to the normies that drink the Coke Kool-Aid. because they get to see like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is way, they got some serious validation of their whole like Q cult. Not that I'm a Kool-Aid drinker myself, but like, dang, I agree that like more and more people, when you order your farmers to destroy their crops and kill their livestock, there's obviously something going on with an attempt to take over all means of production of food and stuff, which is like, that would be game over for us if we gave that up. And what I love is that there's such a huge movement in the other direction to start our own gardens and get back to doing what ancestors always did.
So huge. So I can't say how many people I've talked to who are like, yeah, I'm doing my first ever garden. I'm like, this is so amazing. And that's why they tried to shut that down in the whole shenanigans too. They're like, oh, you can't go anywhere. You can go to the store, but you can't buy seeds there. You're like, yeah, the seeds are going to make me sick, you freaky weirdos, psychopaths. But on the topic of how we're winning, also the EU has said, I think today, maybe yesterday, that they are now considering nuclear as a renewable or at least a green friendly energy source. So as far as this whole worldwide energy shutdown is going, this is what we said at the very beginning when Germany shut down like four nuclear power plants, and they were like, all right, we're going to go green, but we don't actually have the green infrastructure. And even if we did, it would be powered by coal plants. But let's not talk about that. Let's just shut down the nuclear plants and have no energy at all. We're like, okay, so you're just going to kill everyone. I mean, like, that's what that's going to do. It's going to starve people. It's going to freeze them out of their homes and all of this. And now we're seeing some of the repercussions of this all over the world, just by shutting down access to fuel and energy all over the world. And now the EU is like, actually, I think we're going to keep the nuclear energy because it actually is sustainable and pretty green, which I'm like, this is a huge win, no matter whether you think nuclear is cool or not. In the short run, like, we're all going to die if we don't have energy. So, which maybe you think should happen, and that's cool too. But if you don't think that we should all die, like the Georgia Guidestones said, and like the Great Reset wants, and like they've been saying that they want for all of us, Agenda 2030 and all of that for how many years now, if you don't agree with them, it's a good thing that they did this. So this is in the EU today. One more thing I'll throw on top of this pile of how good we're winning. There was like 30 resignations today all around the world, and high-level cabinet members and government members. And I don't know, maybe that's actually bad. Maybe they were like the good ones and they somehow resigned. But I have a feeling that there's something else going on, that there's like a reason, like they're scared, or there's something that they had like coming to confront them, that they saw coming down the pipeline, and they're like, I'm just going to casually actually get out of the way now. So maybe that's really good too.
Wow. I did not know that. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Such good news.
It's a good day.
Yeah, I think with the nuclear energy thing, there's something going on with that they don't want us to comprehend. And for one, like, I'm not at all convinced that nuclear energy is like toxic and that radiation works as described at all, or that it has anything to do with some kind of magical atom splitting world ending device. I mean, when you look into like all of the so-called nuclear bomb tests that have happened in the world since this technology was said to have been developed, we would already be done. It would already be game over if the fallout was like what they say it is. So
yeah,
I'm cool with the idea that there are elements, and they've probably been hidden from humanity or restricted and misdescribed as a way to keep us from some sort of alchemy understanding that these elements are necessary for. But I'm totally cool with the idea that there are elements that radiate energy that we can use as like free energy devices. And that sounds great. But like in terms of that's going to somehow poison you and poison the environment, that seems like it only happens in the movies.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. That whole rabbit hole is so fun. I was like, it was like the earth is flat and all these other ones. I was like, this is ridiculous. Nukes are real. Like, well, how would they not be real? And then I went looking, I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure if nukes are real.
Well, when you think about it, like, why would Source ever give its creation the ability to end the creation?
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It just makes no logical sense.
speaking of source and what source wants, I really feel like the Earth's consciousness is waking up more and more. I'm getting messages from the Earth more and more at a higher and higher like level, if you want to say that, or clarity maybe is a better word. And I think the Earth genuinely deeply loves us and that we're extensions of it, like it's little babies. And I think when the Earth's like, wait, what's going on with my babies here? Like, so there's just a few of you who are psychopaths and you're trying to take out the rest of my babies. Like, that's not going to work actually for me. Which is another way that I think we're winning. And another way that I think we're winning. So CERN is fired up again, right? And everybody's concerned about CERN. And someone that, is asking me like, are you worried about like, dimensional splits and rifts and stuff? And I'm like, no, not really, because I have jumped dimensions seemingly multiple times, and that's just without even trying to. So imagine what we could do if all of us were like, okay, if you're going to open some dimensional rifts, we're going to manifest what comes through that dimensional rift. We're going to just jump into the world where we win and you lose, because there's more of us and more intention here, and it's powered by love and not hate. So we win. The end. Someone in the rogue chat today was like, I was talking to my 10-year-old person that I talked to or whatever, and they were saying, that CERN's firing up, and I was asking them if they're worried about it, and they were saying no, because, if they're going to manifest something from this, like, energy they're smashing, I'm just going to manifest what I want, even better or whatever. And I was like, dude, a 10-year-old can get it. I think we can all get it. Like, let's just do this. No matter what you actually believe is happening, just pretend for a second that CERN is actually just whatever. It's maybe opening portals and dimensions, and that you can invite through what you want. Well, like, what would you invite through then? Or what dimension would you shift into? And just focus on that instead of being scared or worried about it. Like, who cares? I can't stop CERN, whatever it's doing. So I may as well at least imagine my way through it and possibly create the best future of all.
Well, that's what you ought to be doing, whether or not CERN was a thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel, hey, check it out, Johnny. He's hugged all three of these people.
That's cool.
This great art behind us here is Johnny art that I remixed into a picture for this. Johnny, you're welcome to join us, bro. But I want to share something. You were talking about how the Earth loves us and, actually wants us here and sees us as our children. Check out this hilarious article I saw from The Sun today. Urgent warning to gardeners as soil increases risk of killer heart disease.
Yes.
Touching that dirty, evil soil with all those germs in it will give you heart disease. It has nothing to do with the cowpoke that you took causing myocarditis. You're like, it's that global warming and climate change that makes the soil murderous. So be careful. You better not grow your own food. You might have a heart attack. It's that the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I seriously,
like they're showing us this picture, like this woman is about to die.
Look at her dangerous action.
Stupid hippie.
It says the results of the analysis pushed experts to recommend that people wear a face mask if they're in close contact.
Oh, for Christ's sake!
Oh my God!
It's so funny.
I posted this same article with the caption, like, it turns out anything will kill you with heart disease except for the cowpoke. Literally everything else gonna kill you. That totally safe.
It's too funny. Like
they're like bacon, stress eating, like the sun. They're saying the sun,
Oh yeah, so kill you.
Yeah, they're saying the sun, whatever the EMF bursts and stuff, that's gonna kill you. That's gonna give you a heart attack. This gardening BS, like it's fucking crazy. And people, I like just want to know how many people believe that. How many people read that and were like, well, we gotta wear a mask. We're just not garden at all.
Yeah, Cody says that's what inversion looks like to a T. I remember the day that I realized that the wannabe controllers, the powers that were, are playing opposite day. And that was really great when I realized that. Oh, okay. Everything you say is the opposite. Got it.
Literally.
Now I have a really great navigation system.
Like I learned this game. I can play this game.
So this, you have recently talked to what is his name? Brown's gas fella.
George Weissman.
George Weissman. And I want to talk to
it's your second chat with him, right?
And it's
or do you turn into a robot?
chance.
Hold on a second.
It's my internet, dude. Every time I talk to Lindsay, like things go wonky.
I take no responsibility for this, but I understand completely.
It's not you particularly. It's just you.
It's just me.
It's just you and me. So yeah, both of you, because you're doing the cymatic healing, the solfeggio stuff, and you're doing both that and the Brown's gas stuff, right? Now, do you have the AquaCure thing itself?
Yes.
Okay, which machine do you have?
I don't know.
You don't
The
know?
AquaCure one.
Okay.
I didn't know there's like model numbers or something. I'm not sure.
The
Well, I think there's
AquaCure
different
3000.
generations, I think.
I feel like Chance would know more than me, actually. What? Which I don't know, right? Don't you know like the actual models or what they do?
Yeah, so isn't this what happened? I was like, George, you should talk to Lindsay. She's the
Yes.
best. And then he came on, and then he sent you one, right?
Oh, he sent me one before he came on. Yeah, like
Wow.
as soon as I said, like, yeah, you can come, I would love to have you. Like, let's set it up. He was like, may I send you a device? I'm not gonna lie, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was just like, yeah, you can send me whatever you want to send me. And then I was really, really sick with the, whatever we're calling the thing that they seem to turn on every once in a while. So I was not well, and this huge box arrived at my house, and I was like, what is this? And I like cut it open, and I
It's a
realized,
miracle.
oh, well, yeah, I was like, this is from that guy. And I was like, what did he send me? And I'm like unboxing it. I'm like, this is like a science experiment. Like, I don't even know what's going on right now. So I went to the website and I was like, oh my God, like he sent me this. And I was like, am I supposed to send this back? Like I was so confused and so sick, but I managed to set it up somehow, despite how really, really sick I was. And I started using it, and I credit that with a very swift recovery, actually.
I would love to try that thing out, man.
So you have to.
But I'm not having any specific health challenges currently. It's definitely on my list of things to manifest, though.
Yeah.
I spent several months after I met George, and we should talk about what the AquaCure is for people that didn't catch my talks with him or your talks or his appearances elsewhere. But I spent a couple solid months after I met George just trying to get my mom and dad to get one, because they could easily afford it, and it would be so helpful for them. They're fairly nutritionally deficient, and I say that like, they're the average American diet types.
Yeah.
And actually, when I was trying to get them to get one, my dad had cooties super bad, refused to do anything other than like drink chocolate milk and lay in bed, and ended up with developing pneumonia and had to go to the hospital because he was so incoherent we couldn't even get him to drink water. And so he was on oxygen at home after he spent 13 days there for a while. And I was like, you're already breathing through a breather thing. Please get this thing. It does what you're getting out of the oxygen, plus better, more, super good. And they're just like, I don't understand. I'm not going to do that.
That resistance. They're like, well, someone in a lab coat didn't tell me to. So
what happened was I showed my mom, and she watched 20 minutes of it and then had to stop. And then she was telling her business partner about George's fuel saving inventions, because that was the only part of the interview she saw was him talking about fuel saver inventions. And the business partner in question was like, oh, anyone that has ever talked about that is guaranteed a scammer. 100%. Whatever else he's got, definitely a scam. And so she was like turned off to the whole thing.
Oh man. Like it's used worldwide in all sorts of hospital settings and care settings, and way more so in Asia than here. There's all sorts of studies about hydrogen therapy. Like, it's just sad.
Yeah, so it's a thing that adds hydrogen bubbles it into water and into gas, and it's electrified, to put it simply. It gives your body charge that is beneficial, and the ultimate #1 champion of the periodic table, hydrogen, the base nutrient building block of your entire body and existence itself, not just your physical existence. And I don't know how that could sound anything but awesome.
Yeah. What does he say? You're 67% hydrogen. I'm like, dude, why don't we know that? Like, we all know, like, oh, I'm 2/3 water or something and all this stuff, but like, you're 67% hydrogen. And then he was talking this most recent show he was on about how in your colon is where you would normally be getting the hydrogen. So the last sort of section of your colon, you would be getting hydrogen from whatever's sort of left. It would be like, okay, well, here's what we're going to get rid of it for sure. Anyway, we've already got everything else out of it. So let's rate it for all the hydrogen and like pump that out into the body. But most of us are so screwed like a lifetime of toxins accumulating, accumulating, that our body's doing so much work just to mitigate the toxins that it doesn't have the effort to be able to take the hydrogen at all. It's just trying to get things out of you because you're so toxic. And even those of us who feel like we're really not toxic, you are sprayed with crap every day. All your food is sprayed with crap. Even organic food, for the most part, is sprayed with crap and full of toxins and chemicals, either from what's rained down on them or because they don't have to actually follow any rules if they submit the right paperwork and they're like, oh, we're just having a really hard time this year, so we can't do it organic, but we still need to label it organic to make money. And they're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So like all this stuff we eat isn't organic anyway, unless you're getting it locally or growing it yourself. Like you have no idea, right? Your water, if you're not purifying the crap out of it, restructuring it and doing all this stuff, like you're poisoning yourself. I'm not trying to freak anyone out, but like a lot of us are way less healthy than we might think.
It's crazy because think about all that you just laid down, yet how capable we still are. And imagine if we were operating above like 5% capacity, even like 1% more. We are like super beings, and it takes all of that onslaught of toxicity and bad vibes of all types to lower the human state of consciousness to a level that it can be put into a fear state. That's the only reason why we're even in any kind of a fear state, is because we have these dissonant vibrations and toxins within and without us. And it's not an exaggeration to say that the new age that we're heading into is one where we take full responsibility for all that, pull the plug on the outsourcing of things to anyone other than those that we know and trust, and rise. And we rise far and fast, and it's going to be amazing. It's already happening.
Yeah, it is already happening. I was just talking with someone about this today. I was like, that exact thing. Like, think about if we had our Antiquitech still intact, right? And that was just like pumping like free electricity and maybe like Brown's gas or who knows what kind of good stuff all over. We could go into a cathedral and sit and just receive like healing realignment energies anytime we wanted or something. And everything was organic by nature. And we weren't constantly poisoned with EMF and all the stuff we just said. How much clarity we would all have, and how much of our spiritual skills and gifts would start to come out more. The reason this conversation came up earlier is because I was telling this person, I see auras, and they're like, whoa, what? Like, have you always seen auras? And I was like, well, no, actually it started really suddenly one day. And they were like, well, what was like the trigger? And I was like, I stopped doing massive amounts of drugs. Like I was like 15 or something, and I went to treatment and I dried out for like 3 days. And when I got through the 3 days, I looked around and I was like, holy fuck, everyone is glowing and it doesn't stop. And it changes and the colors are all shifty and and I was like, I'm fucking crazy. Like I went insane from doing too many drugs. And I was like freaked out because I was like, I'm not going to tell these psycho, they have the worst counselors and whatever. They're like, I'm not going to talk to them about this. But I was like, I'll write to my sister about it. I was like, look, I'm broken. Like people are glowing and I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm clearly never coming back to reality. So like, you should just say goodbye to me now. She wrote a letter back because you're not allowed to call when you're in treatment or whatever. She wrote a letter back a couple days later. I was like, she's like, oh, it sounds like this thing I heard about called auras. Like it's like people's like spiritual energy or something. And I was like, what? And then I started like looking at them and I was like, oh, it actually does correspond exactly. Like the colors correspond exactly with their moods and even their thoughts, perhaps. And it does shift in accordance with that. And that is wild. And I was like, weird. I guess this is like a real thing that people have. And then I started being able to like understand what they meant and learn them. So that's just from detoxing for a few days from a bunch of drugs. And that came back to me or whatever. So imagine if you're healing your body using Brown's gas, using solfeggio frequencies or tuning forks or whatever, using people who are healing people like Chance and myself, and I would say Gordon too, even if he doesn't know it, and whatever.
Gordy's done one for me. It was amazing.
Oh, rad. Well, cool. See, so and
it was
all
the
of
Gordy
this
way. I don't know what to call it other than just made it happen. It was just like sheer force of will and intention, and some talking and some breathing and shifting. It was amazing. Gordy's powerful.
Good job. Yeah. So we all have these gifts, and the more you're healing yourself in every possible way, mind, body, soul, especially our bodies right now, I think for most of us, then the more they're just going to open up naturally. It just is what we are.
Well, this is
Yeah.
something I'll kick over to you, Gordy, but I developed the ability to sense and feel energy, and to some degree see auras whenever I really pay attention and try to, from Qigong practice.
Yeah.
And I think Gordy can relate to that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but I've come to recently understand more clearly that the regular practice of Qigong is actually waking up the plasma in your body.
Yeah.
I mean, the water that's in your body is actually in a state that's more akin to plasma than like the liquid state of matter, interestingly enough. So I'd been kind of lax on my Qigong for quite a while. And I think it was because I wasn't noticing as much of an effect from it or something. I don't know, but I'd been pretty like irregular, maybe a few times a month rather than on the daily. And last week I got into the book from the teacher that I learned from him. And then I got his book as like a reference guide. And I was looking through the movements and I realized, oh man, I've been doing several things incorrectly here for a while. So I gave myself a chance to have a full session with the correct movements and correct breathing rhythms. And I was listening to some beautiful 432 hertz music from Alex Michael, the conspiracy music guru, his album that he calls True Solfeggio. But anyway, to continue on to that story, like I talked about that with Alex, if people heard that episode, but since then I've had about 8 days consecutive of doing my daily practice again and doing it correctly. And the first tuning that I did for a client after having come back to my practice and being regular with it, it was crazy because instead of like needing to really listen for the subtle changes in the tone of the fork and like, you know, hope I got it right, hope this is really what I think it is in this spot or whatever, I started getting the more direct communication from my body in like a dramatic fashion. So it almost came to the point where I didn't even need to listen to the fork so much anymore. The fork was just like the instrument. And whenever I would hit pockets of what you would call like static or blockage, I would get these pops and crackles in my ear, and I'd feel these pressure changes in my eardrums as if like I was going up and down in elevation and stuff. And some other body stuff would happen too that would give me clues, but that was the most amazing part. I was like, this is exactly the same thing that I feel in my eardrums whenever I clear something in myself when I'm doing a Qigong posture. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to be the best I can be at this practice for others, and you know, no like loss of love for myself from before when I wasn't regular with my practice. It's just like you always keep leveling up, keep going further. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, this is going to really help me be the best I can be for everybody else as well. And it's amazing because you don't want to like put your personal responsibility on like I'm doing it for them, but it is true that the more that you help yourself, the more that you help others innately. So anyway, Gordy, I'm sure you have thoughts about the Qigong waking up your plasma and the energetic sensitivity.
Yeah, man. And it really has a lot to do with you, Lindsey, because when a couple years ago you started talking about started talking to Mitch about the Orgone and the, what do they call it, the earth pipes.
I don't think that was that long ago because Chance also introduced me to him.
Oh, you did? Okay. So this is why we're here.
Okay. I was like, I don't think that was me, but thank you.
Well, I got some of that Orgone from Mitch, and because my owls were gone. They had left when they turned on that 5G tower. I put some of those Orgone earth pipes in between them and that tower, and they came back. And my big question to Mitch at the time was how much of that is, you know, the Orgone itself and the intention, but it's all that. Like you've been talking about that for a long time, that it's all that. And once you kind of start to understand that and you actually do the actual energy movements with that intention, that full bodied intention, you start to feel it in your extremities. You know, you start to feel the power and you start to feel that your energy field portion. It's there. Like you know it's happening because it's happening in you. When you do that, you're in that flow. I'm pretty sure you can heal yourself of most things.
Oh yeah.
It's not just that you're waking up and enlivening the energy and clearing out the meridian channels with that, but you're also training your awareness. It is, I'm at the point where I would almost tell somebody, if you had to pick between one or the other, pick Qigong over meditation, because you're meditating while you do it if you're doing it correctly.
Right. It is.
I mean, it's not the same as like transcendental meditation and getting into the astral and all that, but in terms of what is most priority for your health and life, maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah, well, really anything that will help you do exactly what you guys have just been talking about, which is to be more in touch with the, you know, what you call it, the spiritual energy of your body, or I like how you're calling it the plasma of your body, right? Or the ether, or the orgone energy, or the prana, or the chi, or whatever. Like, you have it. It's there.
You
it's
are
happening.
it.
You are it.
You are it.
Yes, you're a cymatic expression of it. And so the more, whatever it is that helps you really know and feel that, do that. But do that. And like, I'm a big fan of saying that magic has 3 parts to it. And one is to conceive of it, imagine it, or think it, however you just want to describe that. And the other is to speak it and to cymatically create it. And the third is to act in accordance with that. And that is magic. And that means your whole life you've been doing magic. I piss a lot of people off because I think I take like the mystification away from some of the things they want to pretend are like really, really mystical and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's everybody, everywhere, all the time, for all of history has always had that. Like, it's actually not special. It's the least special thing about it, us and being here, because it is so universal. But it is very special, actually. And especially because we're so detached from it now, it is extra important that we find whatever the ways are for us to reconnect to it. I was also talking to someone today about, you know, trees and plants and animals, and they all have the same exact energy, the same exact feel. Anything does. A rock does. My computer does. Like, everything does. But it's really easy for most people to feel it from a tree, right? And we were talking about how the tree hugger thing, you know, how that's been like a put down, like it's been like, it's like the CIA like made it like to like diss people, but it's like, no, you can actually go up to a tree and you can hug it or not. You could also just sit next to it. You can sit in it or on it or near it or hug it, do whatever you want, and you can feel its energy too. And if you have to maybe get a little quiet, and then you can feel it. And then when you feel that, if you still haven't felt your own, you can start to feel your own, because it's different from that, but it's the same. And like, there's so many ways you can just go connect more deeply and be more present in this eternal flow of etheric energy that we all are.
Yeah, I love to go hit up a tree, not actually hit it, but, you know, put my hand on it, sit under it, something like that. But even if it's just for a moment, I try to do that on every walk, is stop at one of my friends that is also happening to be a tree right now.
Yes.
And be like, hey, I feel great, but if there's anything that I need to like clear and release, can you help me with that? And I just put my hand on it, and I'm like, oh, and I feel a huge grateful feeling just well up within me, and it's magical. But the other day I was checking out, I'm like really obsessed with ancient Egypt lately, and this is part of me is trying to segue into talking about your book now that we got our main people here watching and we've warmed up enough. Get into the thing that we wanted to discuss and promote a little bit here. But I was checking out the temple of Medinet Habu, and there are these carvings all over it that the Egyptologist, that word might as well mean comedian. The comedic writers, they call themselves Egyptologists, claim that these carvings represent dancers.
They're dancers.
Yeah, you see how they're dancing?
That is funny. You're right.
You know, there's like all these carvings. I had a couple images of them where you can clearly, if you know what you're looking at, see that these are basically Qigong moves being described. You know,
that's a really good point.
Oh, wow. It really is.
Like this one looks like, you know, if you were just watching one person go from movement, like point to point in a series of movements, or like Tai Chi or something. That's what this looks like to me. It doesn't look like multiple figures. It looks like it's supposed to be almost like an animation of one figure. That's sort of my inference on it. But yeah, they're totally they bend their elbows in some amazing ways. I wonder if we just like lost the ability to do that.
That's weird.
That is
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I went down this track after I kind of started rediscovering the Qigong thing. I went down this track of kind of like trying to get in touch with kind of other shamanic cultures and stuff, like the Polynesians, and how their dances, like the haka or the hula, those are shamanic dances. They're not for tourists. You know, these are based in real things. And I found that a lot of those movements kind of have the same, that it's not, they're very different feeling in energy field, but it's kind of a really interesting change to feel that how different they are and what kind of connections to source that you feel, spiritual connections that you feel when you're doing those kind of meditation, energy movement meditations. I think it's another way of connection.
Yeah. Oh, it's so powerful.
Very powerful.
Perhaps if I know I've at least told it pretty recently on Tinfoil Hat. I know I've told it on Middle Path before too, but I talk about a dance that was given to me by an eagle spirit guide in dreams, 3 different dreams over, I don't know, a year or two, I don't even know, a while, very distant in time from one another. But each time it was very clear. The eagle would come and be like, yo, like, stop what you're doing, like, step out of dream, Lindsey. I'm like, oh, okay, we're like doing something now. And he'd like teach me some moves. And then I would like do them back to him until he was satisfied. And then he'd be like, hey, bye. And he'd leave. I'm like, that's really weird. Like, an eagle came to me in my dream and taught me like a dance move. And that happened 3 times. And I was like, well, clearly these all go together. So I need to start like getting my shit together, like keeping track of like what these moves are and what order they came in case what if there's like 65 of them? Like, I'm not a dancer and I don't have a memory, but like I need to, whatever.
Yeah,
so
Spirit probably was like waiting for you to record it in some way and empty your cup before they fill your cup again.
Well, what ended up happening was I was in suddenly a very intensely dark situation, not of my own creation, in which I'll call it a demonic energy was coming through a human for the first time in my life, like directly speaking to me. And that dance ended up being what broke the spell, we'll say. So the power of movement and what's, I think, even weirder, but I never got to in the Tinfoil Hat episode, and I don't know if I shared it. I think I did share it on Middle Path, but is that, I don't know, 6-7 years actually, because so I told this story on Tinfoil Hat, and then it's connected with this powwow I went to. The powwow I went to, the guy at the MC was like telling me out of the entire crowd that I was going to be facing the biggest battle of my life, and that it would be very dark, but that I had to remember that all the tribes of the world were standing behind me and that I'm never alone. And I was like, I mean, this sounds like a lot of pressure. And also, as always, am I actually crazy? I don't know. And then this happened, and then did the dance. And I remember the guy saying that. It was all very helpful. So things happened ahead of time in many ways to make me prepared for this moment to be able to carry this out. Thank God. But then 7 years later, I'm telling this story on Tinfoil Hat. And that next day after we record it, that memory pops up on Facebook of that powwow, which I posted before the bad stuff happened. I was like, oh, we just went to this cool powwow. Here's some pictures or whatever. Wow. And I like that memory popped up. So I was like, literally 7 years ago to the day, I was at that powwow that I was just telling this story about. So 6 years later, then I guess, because it was last year, Johnny and I decided to go to a powwow here. Where I've only been here a few years. I don't know anything about the powwows here, how they go, but I found out there was one and I was like, sweet, let's go to this powwow. So we went to this powwow and there was a guest tribe visiting from South America. And in South America, or whatever, they were doing their dance that I'd only been to powwows for the Pacific Northwest natives. And now I was here. So I was kind of expecting like the natives here and their powwow style or whatever. But they were doing this South American dance and they did the exact same dance in an eagle costume.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
what?
I've felt the same way about the hula.
I'm over
I've-
here like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not even
Totally.
You're not
surprised.
intrepid.
I'm not
I was like,
surprised.
I know that was
"What
like
the
supposed to be the mind blow, like mind shattering. Whoa, but I'm over here just like, yeah,
You're like,
totally.
yeah, that's
That's
how it
Lindsay's
should be.
life. I get it.
Yeah.
That is my life. Well, and I'm like, and then I also know I had a past life like as that tribe or whatever. So I'm like, maybe it's not even weird at all. They were just like, yeah, we know in the future you're gonna have this thing. Here's some dance for you. Anyways, dance is very powerful. No matter what culture, I think they're all channeling this beautiful energy through in various ways that we can call whatever we want to call that energy, but it's the same thing.
I love it. I love it. Like getting the information from the astral like that is so cool. There's a guest I want to have on soon that I'm talking to, and I think it's going to work out, who has similar experiences to share about like learning these postures of power and Qigong style movements from basically like Thoth came to him in his dreams and
Rad.
was like, okay, here's how it all works. And so pretty amazing. But let's take a little pivot here. We have a great audience now, and I would love to talk about your book and announce the super exciting news. So everybody, Lindsay's an author, and she's written many different books, in particular 2 in a fiction series called Sine Curve of Aeons. And there's her All Endings as Beginnings book. Yeah, I should grab the actual physical copy of Sine Curve of Aeons off my shelf. Oh, she's probably got it.
One here.
There we go. So you wrote this book quite a while ago,
It was a
but
while ago.
we decided to collaborate on creating an audiobook experience out of this beefy narrative.
It's huge.
Yeah, so we were hoping it would be ready on Amazon or Audible by this point because we submitted it a while ago. It should be any day now approved for y'all to purchase, and we'll make sure to announce that everywhere. But we want to talk about what inspired the story, maybe give a little bit of interesting elements. I have the 5-minute sample queued up that we could play from the middle of the story, just so people can kind of get a feel for it. And I had a lot of fun putting it together. It was a great project for me. I appreciate getting the opportunity to do it and love making audiobooks and plan to do more. So to talk about it a little bit, Lindsay, can you introduce this story, Sine Curve of Aeons, to us? And there's a lot of things just in that title that might be interesting to talk about after we get through this sort of promotional part.
Yeah, I was actually learning. And by the way, Chance, you do an amazing job on audiobooks. It's so good. I'm so happy. I was even like, maybe you can like put in some like solfeggio or like something whenever you like feel like that'd be cool. And you even did that and more. And I'm just so impressed by your work. So high quality work. If anyone wants to maybe hire Chance or whatever, however that works, then he's a great choice. But also the book is going to be amazing to listen to for that reason. But I was studying calculus because randomly at the time right before I started writing this book. And I was doing that because I was tutoring a girl through calculus. And so I needed to know calculus in order to help her get through calculus. So I was revisiting like sine and cosine and all of this. And I was graphing all of this stuff. And it was like actually really fun for me. I really like math. And it's like, it's frustrating. It made me cry to learn it, but it was also like it's really beautiful. And I was just like really into the sine wave, the cosine wave and whatever, and just how like, they're just beautiful. And all the math around them is beautiful. And the things that I would like realize while doing the math was beautiful. And I was just, the world is math. The universe is math. It's amazing. I saw like a sparrow fly by my window and they did the sine curve as they flew. And I was like, what are the chances? And then like you were saying, it's actually not that mind blowing. That's basically like how it should be. Of course, the birds would express this as well. So I was really into that like idea of sine curves and stuff. I also was, and always have been, really into the yugas and this cycle of time that humanity goes through. And while one way of looking at it is the circle, where we have the golden age taking up the vast majority at the sort of top of the circle, and then we have some like bronze or iron, I don't remember the other metals, as we descend on either side into the dark age, which is actually really short, but because it sucks so bad, it feels really long. So I was fascinated by all of that. And then I was even more fascinated about how you could actually look at it as a sine wave. There's equal golden age as there are to the descending, the dark, and the ascending again back to the golden age. And
yeah, to
there's
riff
just
on
this-
that, like just a little quick riff is the darker ages, you know, things are heavier. It's like more density. We've picked up more toxicity. Enlightenment is a process of removing what we're not. So in those times when we've picked up a lot of stuff that it needs to be cleared and removed, there's a heaviness to it. And that's why it feels like we're wading through it, like waiting for the light to come back. You know, if you have a lot of weight, you're going to wait, that type of idea. If you want to
Really?
get light, then you need to get light.
Really well said. That is perfect. Well, and I had this whole thing, which I went through, and maybe a lot of other people too have gone through, where I'm like, why do we have to continuously go through this cycle? Like, what? Why are we just bouncing back and forth between golden and dark and all of this? And this has been like a long theme of my life, is exploring like that movement and why it would be so. And I was talking to the person I was with at the time, and I said, you know, it'd be so fun for me to read a book about this, like a fictional novel that took place in the golden age, so I could start to understand like why would you ever leave that and descend into darkness? And I know it's like cosmic cycles and we don't have a choice or whatever, supposedly, but I just want to know, because I don't buy that. I think that we have a role to play in it. And I don't think that it's just this circle. I think it's this sine wave, and that indicates progression, actually. Whether we go through golden ages and dark ages or not, something is shifting as we go. We are shifting as we go. So I was talking about that, and they just said, why don't you write that? And it like hit my brain like a download. I think that this could be described as a download, like just went into my brain, and I had 3 books in my head, and I grabbed a piece of paper and I was like madly scribbling. And he was like, I didn't mean right now. And I was like, no, I have to like get the idea out before it goes away. And then afterwards I had this problem because I don't write fiction, and I never had. And I've always been an author, and I've always been amazed by fiction writers, and I've never written fiction at all. And the few times I've tried, it's just been like garbage, like just really contrite, like garbage. So I've stayed away from it because I don't understand. Like I never have understood like how people create all this in their minds and like map all this out and like have all this detail and all these characters, and like how they know how every single thing's going to happen and then end, and it's also perfect. Like I could never do that. So I had that problem. Like now I have 3 books, actually. I was just saying it'd be nice to read a book. Life was like, here's 3. They're a trilogy. Like now you have them. And I had the understanding that when the muse comes to you and when inspiration strikes, like you have a responsibility now. Like it chose you. And so you have to actually, you don't have to do anything. But if you don't, you're kind of an asshole. And you've also wasted this beautiful opportunity, because this is like a godlike energy that's like coming to you and giving you this gift. So I was like, well, I have to do it. I don't know how. And I was like, I guess I just have to at least try. So I just sat down and I just started writing. And as I did, things would just fall into my mind. Like I would just see scenes, and a character would come up, and I would just see them, and I would learn their name, and I would start writing. And the more I look back at that and what was happening, it's exactly how I see things when I'm doing ceremonies for people or guidance sessions for people. There is no difference. Like their like loved ones come up, or their spirit guides come up, or whatever, you know, and I'm seeing it and hearing it and understanding what it is and what it's all about. And it's exactly the same process. So I understood a little bit then, but I didn't really know that I was like channeling this through and that it was really coming from somewhere. Like I had that as like a metaphor for myself, but I didn't like really believe it. Took me a while into writing this book. I think I was nearly done with it. Actually, no, that's not true. Maybe I was pretty far into it, at least, before I started understanding that really weird things were going on, and that I was writing about things that I had never known about consciously before in my life, that were actually real in reality. There's some of it in the book that definitely I had like been versed in, like Graham Hancock, you know, ancient hidden history, and this sort of thing was sort of one of my earliest super fringe topics that I got really deep into in like 1999 or whatever, you know, but a bunch of other stuff in this I had never encountered in my life. And then I would write about it, and then it would like appear in reality. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, how did I know these things that I couldn't have known? And the one of them is what people are seeing actually behind us. Johnny's art is one depiction of one of those things that I could have had no way of knowing, but wrote about in perfect detail. So yeah, I could tell more. I don't know if I should pause and give you guys a moment to say something or what.
I'll just say I remember the point in the book where I realized that this was the same planet that I live on and what age it was. I was like, oh, there's this like really cool moment where I realized where I was. And, you know, because as the story is in the beginning, you're not sure, is this like another world, another reality, an alternate dimension, parallel universe? You know, you get some indications early on that there's some connection to Earth, but you don't know what it is. And I don't want to, I want to be cautious not to spoil anything that you don't want to preview for them without them getting into the story. But, you know, to talk about it, there will be a little bit of that, but that was an exciting moment for me, for sure. Realizing
it was an exciting moment for me. I kind of knew that part all along, but there was so much in the whole book that I'm like, I didn't know what was going to happen next at all. And I really mean that. I knew how it was going to end, and I knew like where I had started, and I knew like a few things that would have to happen in between then, just as a logical thinking human. But I had no idea what was actually going to happen. And each time I sat down to write, it would just come to me, and I would just start typing it as I was seeing it and hearing it and knowing it. And sometimes it'd make me angry. I don't know if you had any like disgust with any of the characters as you were going, but I did. I was like, why are you doing that? And people would be like, well, why don't you just write it different? I'm like, I can't. That's what happened. I didn't make this up. This is what they're doing, these assholes. You know, or like the reverse, where I'd be like so happy for them. I'd be like, yes, you're doing it. Like, well, but it was just as new to me as it is for anyone reading it.
So how long did it take you to be comfortable with the word channeling, like describing it as channeling?
Until right now. No, it's it's very recent. Ago. Seriously, I think it was this past year where I finally was like, fine, fuck it, whatever. I'm psychic. I channel things. I talk to entities. I'm love and light. Like, I just have to deal with it. I just have to get over it.
Boy,
that's one of the interesting parts of the story to me, is the connection to specific spirits. And those like there are characters in the story that are actually spirits. They're not embodied physical beings, or if they are physical, they're physical in a different way. And so that was what I was really curious about talking to you tonight was, you know, and you already sort of touched on it with your dancing eagle magic dreams, but I was wondering, you know, how much of, you're saying that this story was channeled and it just already existed, but you know, how much of what happens to the protagonist and maybe some of the other characters reflects your life, despite the fact that maybe that was unintentional because the story just was what it was.
Yeah, because the story, as much as I think a lot of this actually happened in the past, I don't know that like, just like, so I had someone on last night, I think Carrie Ann Broski, she's really cool. And she was talking about how she wrote, you know, a story of her life, but she wrote it as fiction and she fictionalized it because it's easier to get people to understand the things that happened and like how it felt and how it was, as opposed to like actually saying like this happened first and then this, and it was like that. And as the way things actually happen are a little bit stilted seeming, or that whatever, to get people to understand the actual feeling of it is a little bit different. And I feel like that's true about this story, the way it came through too, right? Like the bones of it, the structure of it, and the themes of it are all truth as far as I'm concerned of what actually took place in the past. And the rest of it, I think, is a fictionalization of the main types of characters and energies that had to like happen for this to happen. So there's actually a scene in here that is a dream I had once, you know, but they, and by they, I mean, whatever muse gave me this book, brought me that scene as a scene. And I was like, I know this scene, I've been there. And it was like, yeah. So write it. Like, here we go. This is a scene. This is a scene that's going to happen now. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, cool. So there literally are things in the book that did happen to me. And that's my understanding of why that's also in the book, even though, you know, it's not. If that all makes sense, then I'm glad, because it only barely makes sense to me. But I'll tell you the scene, and the scene is the purple crystal wall thing, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a pretty climactic point.
Yes.
Yeah, there's this amazing theme of the story that carries through the whole time of like the importance of following the path that you know is meant for you, that your soul screams at you that you must do, and how you have no real understanding what ripples or importance you following that path may put out into the world, even if that path leads you to do something that seems so random and incomprehensible or inconsequential to you that, you know, it's like, what was it all for? But it was for everything. And you just are in one limited little point of perspective and don't know how that ripples out and why the future needed you to be there right then to do that, and why everything that your soul screamed at you that you must do for your life path up to that point was the only way you were ever going to get there to do that right then. It's pretty cool.
Wow, so well said. So to that point, you know, there's quotes, there's 3 sections to the book, and each one has its you know, little part 1, part 2, or whatever. And each of those has this quote on it, right? And the quotes are almost all exactly the same, but they're completely different quotes from completely different types of people even, but they all say the same thing. And those quotes came to me as I was writing the books. Like I'd be writing. I'd get to like the end of a section. I'd be like, well, we need a quote here. And then a quote would just like fall into my life. And I'd be like, holy crap, that quote is like perfect. Like that is the point of the whole book, actually. And then I put it in there, and that happened 3 times. And there's 3 sections. So I'm just like, I mean, I really feel like I didn't write this book because it just, those things kept happening. And all I did was give time and space and like understanding of typing and words. And like, I mean, I want to honor myself for that, but I just like, I feel when people are like, you wrote this book, and even more so with the more recent books I've written, I'm like, no, I didn't. Like I typed them out and formatted them and published them, but like something else is doing all that. I'm just really good at following directions.
Yeah, that you make it sound easy, but honestly, the process of sitting down and following those directions for hundreds of pages is not as easy as you just made it sound. That is a Herculean effort. You know, I once asked you, like, what's it like to write a book? And I believe your answer was you have to be okay with just sitting there and doing writing like a lot.
Yeah.
Just a lot of it.
If you don't like that, you probably shouldn't do it. I was like driven too. Like I would come home after work, and I was a teacher for the whole time I was writing this, by the way. And most of this was written during the school year. And if you know anything about teaching, like you don't have free time or a life. But I was like driven. I would come home and I'd be like, hey, I got 20 minutes. I'm going to write some. And I'd write like as much as I could in 20 minutes. And at
That's
least
how you have
that.
to do
like,
it.
Yeah. Because if I didn't, I felt like it was going to stop coming to me like it was coming to me. I was like, this is like, I just have to keep going. And I would go into like trance and just be typing. And if I had more than 20 minutes, I would seriously stop, and it had been like 2 hours later. And I'd be like, wow, like I didn't even stop that whole time to like breathe or think. I was just like going. And I told, you know, Chance was like, wow, this is a really long book. I'm like, yes, this is a really long book. And that's missing 500 pages.
That's almost double what it ends up being.
Yeah.
If you add that. Yeah. The audiobook clocks in at 19 hours, 14 minutes, something like that.
A long book.
Wow.
I think that's why for so long people were like, so what do you do the audiobook? Like, I'm not going to read that, but I kind of want to know what it's about. So I'm like so excited that this is in existence now, thanks to you.
Oh, this is great, you guys. Really this is fantastic.
And I want to key in on what Lindsey just said with the 15, 20-minute chunks. I've talked about this before, but you cannot underestimate the power of a daily practice, even if it is a small practice, because you are building momentum with each of those 20-minute sections. If you only had time in your daily life for 20 minutes of drawing or 20 minutes of typing or whatever the case may be, and you do that, imagine how many more minutes of accumulated progress you will have versus someone who goes, oh, I've only got 20 minutes. I can't do it. We have this idea of like, I don't know, that we need to be right at the destination immediately, that we need instant gratification, that we shouldn't start a thing unless we can pull it off in one complete perfect chunk in some sense. And that is really not the way of the creative process. And what you're describing, the reason why it channeled so easily, I mean, one of the reasons, other than that you're hella psychic and you're keyed into something from the muses, is that by engaging with the practice regularly, the rest of the time that you're not doing it, it's just the same exact thing with like 15-minute meditations a day or 20-minute meditations a day or 30 minutes of Qigong a day. The rest of the day, you have still got that portal open. And so the difference between people who think they're creative and who think they're not creative, one of the key differences is that the one with the daily practice, they've pried open that imagination portal. And so they're able to actually generate ideas of like an inspiration of what they want to do, because they're asking themselves the question every day and actually sitting with it and trying to make a decision about it. Whereas if you never get into the daily practice, how are you ever going to get out of the state of, well, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to do. The more that you do the daily practice, the more automatic the download and the channel will become, because you're asking for it. You're programming your unconscious to be working on the Rubik's Cube of what do I want and how do I do it all the time. But if you're not setting yourself up with that unconscious programming through the daily practice, you'll stay exactly where you've been. And that's how almost every one of my giant mega super doodles that take me 6 to 12 months to complete was ever born, was that I worked on it in 15, 20, 30-minute chunks when I could, and ideally daily. But, you know, yeah, instant gratifications because of her trauma. That's a good one, Cheney.
Ideally daily. Cheney! Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you're I don't know, when you're talking about like that, each time you're doing this, it's building and it's making the flow even more strongly come through you. And each time you do it, that's going to grow and grow and grow. And it was making me think about how I just think some people are like, oh, I don't know how to meditate, or I'm not good at this, like you're saying. And it's like, well, just go do it. Like, just fucking do it. Yeah. Remember at the beginning of the book, I was like, I don't know how to write fiction. I definitely don't know how to write fiction. And that came out of that. So yeah, nobody knows how to do anything, but you just do it anyway and just see what happens.
I'll say you do know how to write fiction. I actually majored in creative writing. Not something I do, oddly enough, but I spent many hours in many classes workshopping people's writing who wanted to be novelists and fiction writers. And, you know, not everybody had that. I won't say that it's like a natural gift. You work for it. You've put time in and effort in, and you've been writing for a long time before you started doing the fiction. But yes. My point is with this is just to praise the writing. It is well done. You know, it far exceeds people that I workshopped their stories when I was in college, who were, you know, training for that thing. So great stuff. And the most important thing is just that you made it and you did it.
I did it. When I was done, I was like, this is the best day of my life. Like, like I did that. Like, that's amazing. And then I edited it 6 times, and that's how 500 pages got removed. Which is also its own whole process. People are like, oh, well, you have an editor for that. I'm like, yeah, I didn't have like $5,000 to just chuck at a random editor and hope that they did a good job. Like, that wasn't my life. So I just did it myself, which, whatever, may or may not be the best choice, but it worked out for me.
No, it was good. I've read a lot of people self-published stuff where, you know, I'm pretty sure they didn't ever hire an editor or edit it themselves.
Yeah. I was
or
like,
at the very least, they didn't give it the 5-6 times that it needed to be looked at.
That's why I'm like, I've read this book like 10 times, like, because I wrote it, there was one, and then I edited it that many times, and then I've read it since then, trying to do my own audiobook version of it, which I just am not good at. I am not good at audiobooks. I'm so glad that you are. It's so awesome for me. Thank you.
It's fun for me. It's because I wanted to read the book anyway, and that's kind of the big advantage of producing audiobooks is like I get to read a book that is cool and have fun with it.
You're going to love Earth, A Trough in Time even more. Like, Sine Curve is my baby. It's the first. I love it. It's so good. It's one of my favorite books. I'll just say, even if that's a really like, whatever, but Earth is much shorter and it's set in modern times. And it just moves more quickly as a Dark Age would. It is very Dark Age-esque.
You know, though, I was looking on the book on Amazon, the second one, and it doesn't look like on a page count level it's that much shorter, but maybe there's
maybe
like
it's all in my head.
Maybe it just feels shorter because there was less that you needed to remove. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe, yeah, I don't know actually. And it's funny because I'm writing the third one now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing, actually. I like had this really vague. The third was the most vague in my mind. Like I really understood the first one. The second one I had a pretty good understanding because I've lived most of it. And then the third one, I was like, I just kind of understand like this vague, really vague outline of it, and that's it. And now that I'm here writing the third one, I'm like, holy shit, this series is amazing. Like, wow, the way it
If I
all
had
comes
to
together
guess,
is insane.
if I had to guess, the third one is going to be like basically showing us where we're going,
Yeah,
you know, and thus some of it will involve like how we get there too. So
absolutely.
I'm excited about that.
So
I
cool.
queued up. It's only about 40 seconds. I wanted to play at least a couple samples from the audiobook for fun, but you brought up the quotes that you inserted into the writing and you put those in at like the act breaks, part 1, part 2, part 3. So this is the part 1 clip here. I'm going to play it. So if it's like way too loud or way too quiet, give me like hand signal. I'll know what you mean. Confront the dark parts of yourself and work to banish them with illumination and forgiveness. Your willingness to wrestle with your demons will cause your angels to sing. August Wilson. And then it goes into the narrative of chapter 1. But I like to put the oops, it's right on repeat. Yeah, I put some music in for those act breaks to like set the mood.
Yeah,
royalty free, I promise.
Cool. That's awesome.
That sounds great, dude.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Well, do you guys want to play out the sample that will be the 5-minute sample on Audible for people who are considering to buy it?
Yes.
Okay, because this is like just 5 minutes right in the middle of the story somewhere. Well, not just anywhere. I felt like this was a really appropriate place to sample. So, all right, we'll do this. We'll hang out. The stone walls flickered with the illumination cast from the fire. The dancing light played on the uneven striated stone walls that stretched up and curved around, surrounding the dark space. It was no normal flame, but those who were now gathering around the lustrous mahogany table in the center of the cavern were unconcerned with this feat that would have shook the bowels of most humans on Phi'Telas. These men were accustomed to it. The gathered sages understood much of reality that normal people could not understand. In fact, they knew the people had been intentionally prevented from understanding, and they despised that so much had been hidden. Deficits such as these within the perceptions of the masses were precisely what had led them all to this table, albeit indirectly. One, only recently led to their gathering, stood at the door, an observer. The schmarmy youth's arrogance paused at the solemnity and intrigue before him. Dressed in the dark robes of ritual as they had for countless years, the men stood around the table waiting for their leader. This gesture of deference had been adopted in decades prior, as it had become clear that their leader's mastery of skill superseded their own by chasms so wide, most could not perceive the other side. The master could have easily trumped every one of them, even had they joined in a circle of 13 and merged their powers as one, so great was his skill. These 13 of the inner circle prepared themselves, each in his own way, but all moving toward calmer minds, more clear vision, and meditative states. Soft sounds at the false flame that pretended to burn, and the susurrant shushings of the robed men whispered about them in the chamber deep beneath the earthen frozen fields far above them. These cave systems, so lore stated, had been carved by the gouging talons of a legendary dragon, clawing the earth in a death throe as its age had ended and the human age had begun. No matter the genesis of the underground tunnels, they served the purpose of the group ideally, as though their presence here had been planned by the spirits long, long aeons ago. Most members believed as much, feeling their path to be preordained, and such was their devotion that the one spirit, darkly coiling about their work, had sometimes graced them with its interaction, such that it had confirmed as much. After pregnant moments of silence and stoicism, the master finally entered. His presence sober and forceful, the assembled bowed their heads immediately and ceremoniously raised their voices as one to intone, "Hail to he, reclaimer of the moonlight." The dark gray-haired man took his place at the head of the table, raised his face as though looking toward the heavens of the very moon whose energies they were in the business of reclaiming, and raised his hands as he responded, "May the horns of Sianewa once again encase her light." At the end of the traditional greetings, once their leader had sat himself into his ornate wooden chair, the gathered sat. Out of custom, all 13 held their hands in front of them, clasped upon the wood's deep surface, holding their gazes steady, careful not to look directly at anyone, and especially not their revered master. The youth at the door looked at them all, openly and unabashed, until a flick from the master's wrist sent him crumbling to the floor. Many at the table spared a thought to admire that he had not made a sound as he fell. His training was progressing well. Indifferently, the master's eyes drifted toward the flame, and he absently flicked his fingers and motioned, causing the flame to change colors, grow, and shift, making playful shapes as he considered his words. Finally he spoke, his voice low and severe, but still echoing in the bare stone chamber. "The changes are coming," he began. "We will not be held below much longer." He paused, mostly for effect, then went on. "There is little that can stand in our way now that the girl has been securely removed from the time stream that would have led to her intercession." He said the last word with a touch of disgust, unable to stop the feeling from seeping out of him. The pesky brat, a nobody from the same nowhere as the pile of flesh at the door, had somehow threatened their entire lives' work. And she doesn't even know it. All right, that's the free sample. The bad
Wow,
guys
dude,
having their shadowy meeting.
That sounds great, man.
Thank
I love
you.
the effect, the little chorus effect. That was great.
That was great.
Do you want to know how I did it?
How'd you do it?
I recorded myself with multiple inflections saying the same thing and then stacked it on top of each other and then stretched the audio so that the peaks and troughs would be pretty lined up. So it was like they were all in unison.
Dude, that was awesome.
Great.
I was like, I was not expecting that. Super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the
fun.
level of detail and like professionalism that you bring to this is pretty amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope to get better as I go, and I'm excited to continue and do your next book as well.
So excited.
I love it. I've actually got a few books queued up to read, a few shorter ones before.
Have I sent you Earth?
No, I do not have a copy of that
Oh,
yet.
well, I need to do that then.
Yeah, I'm excited to read that, man, especially knowing kind of like what I'm getting into a little more. Yeah. People, you're going to love it. I wish I could say that you could go get this on Audible right now. You will be able to, I'm sure, any day.
Any day.
The luck upside here is that Lindsey is a podcaster. I'm a podcaster. You'll be able to you'll be able to find out as soon as it's available. We will let you guys know. And yeah, the way to get it will be through Audible, which means if you are new to Audible, whenever you sign up, you can get a free book credit, which means you could use your free Audible book on this book if you want, or any of my other audiobooks that I will be producing, or the previous one I did, July's End with Black Swans, also as a nonfiction, but full of amazing syncretism gravy that you guys will love. I'm actually going to be, that is the next one I have queued up, is book 4 of the Spirit World series. And it's interesting how it correlates to Sine Curve of Aeons in the sense that in this new Spirit World book, it's called A God's Acre for Winds of the Soul. I've already read it because I couldn't keep my hands off of it, even though I haven't like narrated it yet. And that's going to be amazing challenge because there's so many words from other languages that, and like straight up have to look at a word in Greek, in the Greek alphabet, and phonetically sound that out. Like that was what I learned, the Greek alphabet, in the previous iteration of the Spirit World book I narrated. But anyway, he gets into the idea of the ages and the yugas and other versions of that same idea.
It's universal. Yeah.
But he throws shade at it a little bit. Not that there's no such thing as like ages or a process that's going on. He's more throwing shade at the priest class that has been giving us these ideas. He's pointing out how, like, you know, they're talking about millions of years cycles. It's just as abstract and impossible to really connect with as what the scientism side does, with what they tell you about, like, you know, the age of the universe and things like that. It might as well be it is the same cult that gives us the white coat and the black coat, the deep church and the scientism. But I'll read like a quick little snarky thing that he says in this book. He goes, regarding the yugs or ages, every system seems to have its own age. The one thing astronomers and priests are consistent at is being incorrect. Most add another layer to their talent for being logically fallacious, which is their superstitious beliefs that the figures in religious stories were literal historical people that can be dated, an error that has plunged humanity into the dark ages in which we still live. The priest class and mystery schools are to blame for this, for they couldn't exist without extorting the people of the nations in which they built their temples. Only they can bear the responsibility of concealing their secret doctrines under the guise of history. And what he's referring to there is how there's so much that we're given as history that he shows conclusively in this work, like Rome and Troy and things like that are pure astrotheology. If you actually know it, the symbolism, you know, like the 12 emperors of Rome, how many signs are in the zodiac and things of that nature. And so what he's pointing out is not that there's no such thing as precession or ages, but more like he makes this great point that look at how long a solar year is. We currently hold it to be 365.25 days, right? And yeah, for a long time, they were trying to make a year fit to 360 days. And there are like the precession, for example, people wanted it to be 72 years per 1 degree of precessional shift of the ecliptic moving, but it's not exactly that. It's like a fraction. There's like a decimal in there for it to be exact. And he makes the point of, like, it's almost as if God wanted to make sure that nature could never really fit to some kind of superstitious system of whole numbers and exactness, and that the priest class has been wanting their tweaking their observations to try to fit their own doctrine about what they believe about certain numbers and things. And so it's really interesting.
Sounds like what's happening right now with everything. They're like, no, really, this is what's going on. Look, we'll just change all these numbers. See, now it works. Now there's global climate change. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if that's how science works, then yeah, sure. That's what's going on now, I guess. Yeah, it's very interesting that, you know, all of those things like you're talking about are so disconnected from us. Like, how could we even conceive of this? The age of the yuga, or, you know, even what age we're in, right? There's so much contention. Some people are like, oh no, we left the dark age like a while ago. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think so, but there's 72 different ways of looking at that, like which age we're in and where we are in each age and like how you're going to calculate it. And it's like, clearly no one really knows, or a lot of people think they know for sure. And since none of them agree, it's hard to say, but, it's so depersonalized and it seems so out there and so far away from us. And all we know is we're living right now and here's what's going on right now. And that was part of why I wanted to read a book about it. I was like, I just want to imagine what it's like. I just want to like jump into this world and just see what life might have been like and why it might have been like that and all of this. But more importantly, to bring back, like you were saying, Chance, this like idea that not just to be guided by your soul and not just to follow your heart and not just to do those things, even if they sometimes seem ridiculous or the opposite of logical, but also to like take responsibility for yourself. Because 100% of all of the things that happen in this book and all the ones I think that are going to come out of me highlight that if just one person would just take responsibility for themselves, then all sorts of things would be massively different, perhaps for all of time, for all of humanity, right? And all those quotes are saying the same thing, right? They're saying, if you want to change the world, you have to change yourself. If you want to do good, like your angels are going to be stoked about that. And if you don't, like the world's going to be a little shittier because of that. That's you doing that, right? Because we have this conception, especially like when we think about like the priest class or who's running CERN or like all of these things, we have this feeling like this is something outside of us. It's external, and therefore I can't control it, and therefore I'm powerless. And like, no, you can't control it. Actually, you can only control one thing in all of the universe for all of time, no matter which incarnation or where you are or what time period it is. And that's you. And that's literally only going to be the only thing you're ever going to control is you. And so, yeah, they might be fucking psychopathic, evil fucks. Who knows what kind of dark shit they get into or what they're trying to pull off or how successful they've been or not been. It doesn't matter. I still just have to take care of me and just do that. And that is all I can do anyway. And it's the best thing for the whole universe that you do that.
Yeah.
It's very personal, actually.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that whole, we're in the Kal age, the Kal Yuga, age of destruction, age of darkness, all those type of ideas. Doesn't that just sort of give people a mental abstract concept that's an out for why their life sucks rather than, because it doesn't matter what the rest of the world is doing. You can get in alignment with nature. You can get in alignment with truth. You can follow your highest calling. You can live out your purpose.
Yep.
And it won't matter what's on the sky clock right now. You know,
and
I mean, that will have influence over how you do it and what you do to a degree, but it doesn't stop you from having free will and exercising it.
And yeah, like exactly. It's not going to stop whatever's happening around you or what things feel like or seem like how much toxins are being dumped on you or whatever. But you also have this choice to do anything with that. And you're, oh God, I lost it, but it was so good.
That was beautiful already.
I was headed there. It was like, you know.
As soon as someone else starts talking.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. The Dark Age, you know, which I firmly believe we are in the middle of, maybe towards the outer edge, who knows? But in the Dark Age is what they say, right? And it seems very true to me in my own experience, at least. They say like one little match struck in the Dark Age lights up everything. You're in the light age, you're in the golden age, you light a match, everyone's like, yeah, cool, we got bonfires over here, bitch. Like, who cares about your stupid match? Like, it doesn't matter.
No, they're like, oh, what a nice match you've got there. True. You're so beautiful. You are wonderful.
You're right. A special match.
But no one notices the match, and the match doesn't actually have an increase in your own enlightenment because you're like, I mean, you're surrounded by light. So they say in the golden age, you'd have to do like 10,000 da-da-das and Hail Marys or whatever to get like an ounce of enlightenment. But in the Dark Age, you have one thought of light and it like pushes you like even further. So you have more opportunity now. If that's true, feels true to me. If that's true, you have more opportunity now than you're ever going to get in your soul's progression, right? Right now, to just be your best light and let it shine.
So, okay, good. This is the cool stuff. We were talking last night in the conspiratorium about how these things, these conversations, our idea farms are the only thing that really is kind of tangible. And this is what we've kind of found throughout these ancestral lines of the story cultures, the cultures that keep the campfire cultures, I think they call them in anthropology, where it's all, like Native Americans and the Aboriginals and oral traditions. Everybody, every time an idea is conveyed and we talk about these things and we analyze and we get a little bit further, because you teach me one, I learned something from Lindsey Scharmyn, and then I've learned something from Chance, and then I learned something from any of the spiders, and then we're all rising boats, we're rising tides. But these things, even, as amazing as these things are, and how much we learn from these things, these are combustible. These are going to burn. These are going to degrade someday. But that idea that we spread today might go on forever.
Yes, it's true. And it might spark the thing that makes someone follow their soul's path that leads to like saving the world.
That's right. Super cool. I'm glad I got to talk to you again, Lindsey Scharmyn.
Oh yeah,
I'm so stoked.
Fun. It's awesome. I'm glad. It's always good to hang with you guys.
You too, man. So one of the I see, this is my thing. I get easily distracted by all the, like, I can't do chats and stuff. I can't, like, because I'm like, oh, tinfoil, oh, another thing. But like, these are like being able to talk about a Woogie, what a Woogie is with somebody, like that's a special time, I think. So Lindsey, what's a Woogie to you?
I was gonna say, I don't think anyone knows what a Woogie is. It was such a random find. Like every book that comes to me in my life is just random chance. It just falls into my lap, or I just
there's no such thing as chance.
I agree. And so all of them are like these most amazing like pivot points in my life, because this book just like happened, which is why I feel really bad. But people are always like, you should read this, you should read that, you should read this. And I'm like, I can't. I'm reading like what my soul tells me to read. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of them. So I mean, get in line. But one of the books that I was brought to me was a shamanic teaching book, and it was so beautiful because there's so many millions out there. But this one was like written for me. Like it was exactly my language I was already speaking. So it confirmed and affirmed a lot for me. And then it also had these little nuggets in it that I'm like, I didn't know anyone else in the world had these experiences or knew what was going on. And one of the experiences I've had my whole life that was in this book was Woogies. And I didn't call them that at first. I just thought they were aliens because we talk about UFOs, and I had heard of UFOs and their lights in the sky. So if there's a light in the sky that isn't behaving as a normal Earth plane or jet should, it's a UFO, right? But they quickly like showed me that they were not that at all, and that they're in fact non-physical, non-material, that they communicate psychically, and that they're energetic beings or interdimensional beings, if you want to call them that, and that they can appear however they want to appear, but most often appear as lights, especially at night in the sky. And so I just started like thinking of them as angelic or demonic or whatever, because some are good and some are bad, and or whatever, if we want to judge them. And I didn't know how else to really describe them. And I stopped talking to people about them, even because people were just like, yeah, you're weird. Like some people would see them with me, and that was really cool. Like I could call them if the person was willing and wanted to see them, then I could like call them and they would come and the person would experience that too. But believe it or not, most people don't want to. Like that's too much for them. They're like, no, I'm like comfortable in 3D. Like I got to go to work tomorrow. Like I don't really need to like get up into like some interdimensional shit and try to figure out what this universe is and what my purpose of life is. So a lot of people just don't want to know or see. But some people would want to, and they would see it, but otherwise I just didn't really have a way to talk about it, or anybody who cared basically, or wanted to talk about it. And then I read this book and they called them the Woogies. And I was like, because I'm like, I hate calling them UFOs. I hate calling them aliens because they're neither of those things. I don't want to call them angels or demons because they're not that either. Right. And so what do I call them? So I call them Woogies now because of that book. And I'm just so grateful that book came into my life and taught me that concept. And in that specific tradition, the Woogies are part of the guardians of the equivalent of like a walkabout that tribe would do, right? You go out and this is how you become a man, and you go up into the mountain and you survive for 3 days and 3 nights. And then you come back and you have your
no water.
No food, no
You
water.
just pray and chant and ask to be shown what you need to be shown.
Absolutely no tools. Yep. And so they were saying, some people never come back from that. The end, like goodbye to you. So it is like a confronting thing, in that these Woogies are part of both the protectors and the challengers on that path, right? So they'd be like, yeah, we're going to help keep you safe and whatever. And also we're going to like confront you with this. What are you going to do about it? Which is really interesting to think about too. Again, I've talked about how like some of them seem sort of bad, but at the same time, none of them has ever harmed me. But they have presented like certain challenges that caused me to grow. So it is very interesting how well it correlated. And I was just like, okay, yeah, they're Woogies. So I actually did an episode called Woogies or Star Beings or both. Or actually, I don't remember what the episode's called, but I talk all about them and some of my experiences with them.
That was a good one. I happened to catch that one.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I always wish that I could see every one of everybody's shows, but when I do tune in to your stuff, I'm always so glad that I managed to get in on that one. And you know what? I just found a book that talks about them as Woogies.
Shut up.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the book called?
Oh, everyone. I recommend this book highly, especially because I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get one of the authors on InnerVerse.
What?
But this is Origins of the Gods. It came out this year, but it's Andrew Collins and Greg Little. They've done tons of amazing work together and independently. Greg Little is the reason why we even have a comprehensive understanding of the mound building culture of North America. Dude is amazing. Actually, his experience, I'm pretty sure, is that he was like working in psychology and as a doctor and helping people that way. And then he had some kind of dream experiences where beings were like, you got to go check out the mounds and you have to look at all of them. You got to go to all the mounds. So he created like an encyclopedia of mounds in North America.
Wow.
That was way back. And that was kind of what got him into this path. But this book, I've been listening to the audiobook of it. Speaking of audiobooks, and it's called Origins of the Gods, Chasm Cave, Skinwalkers, and Contact with Transdimensional Intelligences.
That's another. So just, I have to tell you, the first iteration of Cernunnos that was on the cover of Sine Curve of Aeons, the title to the piece of art that I borrowed that from was called Transdimensional Emissary.
Oh yeah, I've got that version of the book. I can go grab it in a second. But to just wrap up with this, they explore, I'll read this a little detailed about this book. An examination of the role played by shamanism and communication with higher intelligences in the development of ancient civilizations. Explores how our ancestors used shamanic rituals at sacred sites to create portals for communication with non-human intelligences. Shares supporting evidences from the spiritual and shamanic beliefs of more than 100 Native American tribes. Shows how the earliest forms of shamanism began at sites like Chasm Cave in Israel more than 400,000 years ago. So anyway, a couple of interesting points that I'm taking out of this that aren't maybe where they were intending for or aware of, but like when they're talking about these spiritual and shamanic beliefs of more than 100 Native American tribes, I'm over here with all this study I've been doing into the syncretism between all of the other mythologies and religious cults of history and showing that they're all coming from the same source and they're all really the same thing. And like this, the exact same doctrine of emanations in a different, different packaging was what the Native American tribes had. So back to Sine Curve of Aeons, your book, one of the things thematically that's going on in that book is like, without it being too big of a spoiler, you're showing a world that has a connected civilization with harmonious cohesion of their understanding of the spiritual reality. I won't even call it spiritual beliefs. They just understand spirit. Yeah. And it's like part of their life. And so the other thing, other than the syncretism, showing that the North America and South America, they probably have origins in terms of their mythologies in the same place, or maybe world-spanning civilization that the European and the Orientals had. On top of that, he gets into some really, really fascinating science on plasma, which I've been talking about this too before I found this book, that plasma is a life form. That plasma actually does, and he gets into so much great detail, but plasma as a state of energy or matter, kind of an in-between between energy and matter. It is able to self-organize and self-replicate. And it takes on properties like a double barrier membrane that you would see in a cell wall, or double helical patterns that then replicate themselves like cellular mitosis. That plasma does that shit. And so they're making this really, or it's mostly Greg Little is making this argument that what we're calling Woogies, what we're calling UFOs sometimes, I mean, there could be other things that we call UFOs as well, but that we're looking at like etheric critters and we're looking at plasma critters in a sense, and that they're just vibrating at a rate and a density that is beyond most people's level of perception, like the difference between seeing auras and not seeing auras, but that this is a intelligent, self-organizing energy that when we say that these are like spiritual beings and non-physical beings, that's partly true, but there does seem to actually be a pathway for us to understand them physically on a physical level. And I'm super excited about that because I have been really feeling that it's time to bridge that divide between our belief and like, we're on the physical plane and there's the spirit world over there and it's unknowable. That I think that this is the spirit world. We never left. There's nowhere else that you can go. The physical world is just one part of the frequency bandwidth of the infinite spirit. And we're in the spirit world right now. There isn't a separation between there and here other than conceptually. Division is mental, and we can heal that divide because nature doesn't even want us to do division. It's not even how it operates. And in fact, it's the priest class and the media and all these different wannabe powers that have always wielded division in our minds first in order to divide and conquer us on the physical plane and take those resources that our birthright, which is nature. So anyway, that's my rant. That was a pretty good rant.
It's absolutely true too, that those plasma beings, energy beings, etheric beings, spiritual beings, like they exist fully. It's not, you know, because when we say spiritual, the other thing we do is we tend to think like, oh, so it's not really real, or like, you know, oh, so it's like over there, it's like, oh, it's like the collective unconscious sort of, or it's psychological or something. And in reality, like Chance is saying, like it is actually real. So one of the ways I know that experientially is this Cernunnos who came into this book who I had never seen the god Cernunnos before. I'd never heard of him before. I'd never read about him. I've never like knew what he was about, nothing about him at all. And then all of a sudden I'm writing this character into this book. I understand that he's this spiritual sort of entity, that being exactly of the nature that Chance is just describing. You know, plasmatic might be the best way. Transdimensional might be another way to talk about him. Here's all his characteristics. Here's what he looks like. Here's what he's doing, right? And then I go and I find this ultimate synchronicity between this painting that Chance is holding up here, which is titled Transdimensional Emissary. It looks exactly similar to how Cernunnos first appeared in this book. It looks exactly similar to where he appeared in this book. There's even that portal that he's coming through. And I was like, that's my book. I was like, how did this artist paint my book, like a scene from my book? I was like tripping out about this. Then shortly after that, just a random like article or something got posted from somebody that was, or, you know, I don't even know how. And it was just like Cernunnos. And it was a similar sort of horned masculine being. And I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, there he is again. I was like, what is this thing? And I click on it, read about it. Every single aspect of Cernunnos that is true in our lived reality for that group of people in that part of the world is exactly how he's coming through in this book. Why? I mean, because he exists, because they saw him and knew him in this way and knew all his characteristics. They didn't make that up, right? Like that's how he comes through. That's the energy he carries. That's his job. That's his role, right? And so I saw the same thing and perceived the same thing. And like, that just is it. That's how it exists. The same thing has happened to me when I'm doing ceremonies now for people, or guidance sessions for people, where something will come through and I'm like, it's like this, it has these qualities. It's like, it looks like this to me. I think its name sounds kind of like this. Here's what it wants to share with you and talk about, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll go look it up afterwards. And it's like, yeah, just like Cernunnos, it's a real god somewhere or goddess somewhere. It has those exact qualities. That's what it looks like. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know those people or things, but clearly they exist, because how else
Archetypes.
did they come through, right? But it'll be very specific. There was a saint once that came through, and I don't remember which one. And it was like Saint so-and-so. And he told me, I'm Saint so-and-so. And here's the things that he's doing and saying and being. And I'm describing all this. And we go look it up. And it's Saint so-and-so, a real human being that lived. And that was his name. And those were the things he was all about. And I didn't know that before then. Like, I met him on the spiritual dimension. Then I found the evidence that he existed in real life. And this has happened to me now so many times that I'm like, I don't even question it anymore. Like, yep, here's this thing. This is what it looks like. This is what it's saying. Here's what it wants you to know. Like, there it is. So my point being, those things exist, like you said, though we can think of them as spiritual or not. It doesn't matter actually what word we want to give to it, because that just is an existence, a level of being that exists. And they're just like us in every other way, besides that they're not this density or whatever you want to call this.
Hey, everybody, encourage James Maiden to get on screen with us for the end here.
Hi, James.
We really want to see you, Jim.
Hey, can I plug something else that you can get through Lindsey Scharmyn's site?
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I got that. This one I got directly from the artist, but these are medicine bags that Lindsey sells on her site, made by, oh my God,
Lacey. Yeah, Lacey's an incredible, beautiful leather worker. She also made me this tarot case for my tarot cards, which is really beautiful and well done. So she's
Whoa.
Yeah. I know, I love it. I always just had them in like my box or whatever. But so going through her directly to get any kind of leather work is awesome. And if you want to buy one of her medicine bags, they're on the site at rogueways.org. And I send them with some medicine you can add if you would like to. That I ask your guides to tell me which things would be good for you, and I give you a little note about why they did that. And so, or if you just want the bag, you also are obviously free to go with tradition and get your own medicine to put in as well. I don't put it in for you. You do that yourself.
I actually should hit Lacey up, because my I Ching cards, I've had been just keeping them in the box that they came in. And I was at this festival in May, and it got pretty wet and soggy, and the box disintegrated. The cards survived.
Wow, that's amazing, actually.
Yeah, but the box disintegrated, so I don't really have a good kiss for them now.
Yeah,
this is interesting, though, because that you pulled that out, because before we got started, I had this deck pulled out, and I thought maybe Lindsey and I will end up pulling a card for the collective tonight. Ooh. And then you just showed us your deck, so like I don't have to ask. You got your deck handy?
Oh, it's time.
Yeah, so I'd love to do that. I'm gonna pull from the Mystical Shaman Oracle by Alberto Violdo, and I really have been enjoying this deck. It's new to me, but I'll let you go first if you are down to do a draw for everybody.
Sure, I'm gonna pull from my Handel deck, which is the only deck I have. It's a beautiful deck. It draws from all cultures around the world and many traditions, including the I Ching and astrology, and more is all in here as correspondences, depending on if you're doing major or minor arcana.
Can we maybe tap into like, why did the Georgia Guidestones get blown up today? Was that Woogies that did it? Is it a false flag?
Let's say, what message would you like to share with us about the Georgia Guidestones destruction today?
That's perfect.
There you go.
This is the card of the devil. Just in case we wanted to know more about that guy. I actually love this card though, because it's far less scary and like demonic than we might think. The devil card is actually more about temptation than anything else. So the devil is actually this very high level spiritual being. He's got his little third eye open here. And he's got his snake, indicating that, like, whether we look at that as Kundalini or as wisdom or as whatever else, like, he's got it. we're the ones who then say like the goat is bad and the cloven hoof is bad and the snake is bad, but they have their energies and their goodness. What the devil does do, like he even has his crystal crown, right? He's not fucking around spiritually, but what we usually do is we make the devil our scapegoat and we say like, it's your fault this and this happened, right? But we do that mostly out of temptation as well. So whether we're talking about the temptation of like drugs and alcohol and the things that sort of draw us down, which we're doing to ourselves, devil's not doing that to us, right? Or we're talking about the temptation to blame our problems on others, like the psychopathic elite and whatever else, right? Both of those are sort of devilish energies and temptations. And what the devil actually asks us to do, especially upright like this, is to say, like, in what ways are you, like, the very fitting of the theme of this conversation, in which ways are you abrogating your self-responsibility and saying, like, well, I can't, they're spraying the skies and they're, like, control the school system, so I can't do anything. This dark age sucks, and I'm just a victim of it. Like, in what ways are you doing that? Or in what ways are you like, I'm a Dutch farmer, bitch, and I'm going to fucking shut down the government? Hi, Cheney.
Hi. Surprise. No.
By the way, Cheney's going to be on Rogue Ways this Sunday.
Oh, perfect.
I like impromptu with you.
It's
That
just
never really
randomly
happens.
happened.
I know.
You know what's funny is I was like, I'm pretty sure I fucked up and there's actually supposed to be someone, but it's not on my calendar and I have no way of finding out who it was. So I guess thank you for wanting to come on the show. And then like 2 days later, someone messaged me and was like, by the way, I can't do the show this Sunday. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine.
I was like, if you're watching this right now and you're supposed to be on this Sunday.
So the devil, right, wants us to take responsibility for ourselves, stop blaming others, and stop pretending like evil is the reason that our life sucks, and get better. And the other message of it would, of course, be to like resist temptations that you have built into yourself that, threaten to drag you down. But I really, especially given that we're drawing this in connection with the Georgia Guidestones, would say this message is to stop blaming the what we perceive to be the powerful few for our problems and start being like those Dutch guys and just doing what the fuck we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So good. Couldn't agree more with your analysis of why the devil card would come up there, and symbolic of the guidestones being removed is like, look, there's nobody in your way anymore. That's why I've been calling them the powers that were.
Yeah, that's a good
I liked
one.
it.
So I drew the seer. Oh, let's get it where it's not reflecting my light. Yeah, the seer. So the seer is about the capacity to reach beyond the obvious details and discern the information that's available in the hidden realms. It's like, this is it's time to open up to our psychic gifts, our perceptions and intuitions, trust the knowing that we just know something without having to exactly be able to point A to point B, know the line of how that came into our understanding. So in context with the Georgia Guidestones, this is like, hey, do some reading between the lines, not just whatever the story is of how this happened is probably not the case. Whatever the obvious mundane explanation is, there's probably something more to it, that maybe this is showing us that how this happened is some sort of a manifestation of energy from the unseen realms that we may not be able to understand logically, but we can trust that the hidden realm doesn't follow the same rules as what we consider to be the rules of three-dimensional life. So this is a card about, like, in terms of what you just said about the devil, the seer showing up is saying, time to get out of denial, time to quit ignoring what you know, time to do what it's time to do. Like, basically the first rule of any initiation into a true spiritual path or the path of enlightenment is, this is the first rule of Fight Club, right? The first rule of your initiation and your path as an adept is stop lying to yourself. And that rule will always be rule number one. And you have to continually see through the lies you've been telling yourself about yourself and about why your situation is limiting or why you can't this or that. I run into this all the time with tunings with people. Is like, you're holding on to some belief of your lack of powerlessness. It's in your chest. It's in your solar plexus, this belief of powerlessness. But when you can get clear on those blockages energetically, your vision also clears up. So, it's not time for wishful thinking. Somebody's going to come fix the problem. It's time to see the moment for what it is, that this is our invitation to work our medicine, to be on the path, to surrender your vision to spirit, is what the card is really saying. Like, you're going to be shown stuff if you ask. If you ask and you promise to yourself that you're going to take what is shown to you to heart and not ignore and not self-deceive and not be in denial.
And not lie to yourself.
Not lie to yourself. And at that point, your gifts will just continually be apparent because they're always present. Your gifts are the present moment. That is what it is. What you need is always present. And the seer's medicine is about having the clarity to be able to, like, this is what shamanism really is like always being so clear in your body and your inner world, outer world connection that you are able to pinpoint how the outer world is showing up with some kind of energetic blockage or stagnation in flow, and go, oh, okay, that means that in my inner world, in my actual biology, the corresponding flow needs to be primed in that region. And all I do is prime that flow within myself in the corresponding energy center to whatever this blocked feeling is out there that I'm witnessing, and watch it change. And I don't even have to make anybody else do anything or even tell anybody anything. I change it in here and watch it change out there. So that's like the power of the seer.
Hermetic as fuck. It's awesome.
Yeah, I really am loving this deck. Powerful archetypes. Yeah, but what's up, Cheney? What's up, Gordy?
So, Cheney, you had an experience just now?
Now, I was driving. I had to go and get gas and whatever. And I saw the little light in the sky that I'm pretty used to seeing. Like, I don't want to say I can call you. I can call UFOs, but when I'm with my if you believe we can call UFOs too, it's faster.
Yeah.
Like, if I bring you there and I try to hat trick it, it's like a thing that I'm like, I'm going to need you to either believe that there's UFOs or believe in me that I can call. Like, one of these things has to happen, because I can call them by myself all the time, and a buddy of mine, but I was just driving, so I thought I saw one of the little satellite ones, the like little fast dots across the sky. And then it went like where I was like, oh, it's disappearing. And I was standing with my friend Alex. So I was like, oh, look. And I, when you point at something the whole time, and I try to explain to people, don't look at the lights, just let your eyes blur and see the movement. Like, I tried it, but it's like, so then you're pointing and they can't see ever where you're pointing ever. Unless it's like so big. So, but then it like went into the clouds, and it like, it didn't go into the clouds. It went up but it turned, and it was so small, but it like fanned out in red lights. Like, it all went in separate directions as it faded out in red lights, but it was so small that I was like, that I would have just like, I see those all the time. So I just am like, okay, satellites. Like, okay, but I never seen it change color like that or like expand. So I was
what
like,
colors
holy
was
hell.
it?
It just was like white, just a steady little white dot, and then it looked like it was getting fainter, and then it turned into like, I don't want to even guess how many, but it just turned into, let's say, 8 red dots in a circle around it, but they went away.
I love that. Do you ever ask them questions or communicate with them psychically? Hi, James.
I do.
I tell them I'm ready now for them to come closer. Like, I'm not going to be as scared now.
Yeah.
Like, I try to give them this, like, almost the exact same way, honestly. Like, if I were in the jungle somehow and there was a big cat and it was eye to eye, I almost feel this, like, okay, this comfort of like, not this death thing. Like, this thing wants to eat me right now. Like, this thing's just drinking water. I'm just drinking water, and we just catch each other. And just knowing as a species, and it knowing as a species, neither of us wants to harm the other in that moment. We're just drinking water. that's kind of how I feel about it, but it's a panther. So it's like I'm just trying to be like, okay, come closer. Come closer, come closer. And I've seen him pretty close, like cloud level close. But I'm like, all right, now I haven't said show yourself. That would be the but like I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready.
Yeah. They've been some of my best teachers in my whole life.
I'm interested. I never even tried to communicate with them past their vehicle. It's so silly.
I'm just like, I don't know. Now it's just more direct, but for a while it was like flash once for yes and twice for no, or whatever. Flash this color for whatever, and they would just do that and, you know, answer questions. But that's not much of a conversation. You don't actually get as much out of that. And in fact, if you don't ask good questions, you get jack shit, right? If you're like, should I? This is like a good example is the should question. Should I? Blah blah blah. They're like, should what? What is should? Like, you know, like give me the criteria here. If you're like, if I want to, you know, succeed in this business, is it best that I make this choice? And even then they might be like, I don't know, physically, mentally, spiritually, like which avenue you looking to get the feedback here on. I'm like, shit. Like you have
It's
to be
almost
so
like cross-examination in court.
Specific.
You know,
Yeah.
the witness is called up to the stand, and you're not really supposed to put the information in the question. You're supposed to design the question so that the one you're asking gives the information in their
Yes.
response.
Exactly. And they're like, well, I can't, I'll respond, but it's going to mean jack shit because your question sucked. You're like, well, fuck. I mean, that's true.
They're like, you and I both know that was not worth
yeah,
it.
this is not, you could do so much better. Oh, and they're right. And this is when people post those things from teachers from classrooms where they're like, you know, where was Kennedy shot? And the kid's like in the head and they're like, got an F. And I'm like, no, the kid fucking answered your question.
Agree. When I see the kids get the answer smarter than the test, I'm like, this kid should just pass the test regardless because that shows some kind of next level that they're thinking outside your system.
And they're like, well, you know what I meant. And I'm like, yeah, but your question was stupid. So that's your fault. Like you have to.
And you know what I meant is the same as you know what I felt. Like, no, say it.
Or do as I say.
Say it with your vibrations. Don't make me say it with this is my spell. You say a spell. Say what you mean what you say.
Hey, let's say hi to Jim here. I had you muted because of your shop sounds a little bit, but
hey guys,
what's up, dude?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Jim amazing. You're looking handsome with that shorter beard.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had to trim it. Goats tried to eat it. You know how they are.
I'm not surprised.
I like it shorter as well. I thought it the other night on the show. I was like, something looks so different, but there was 3 things going on. You had your hair pulled back, which was different. You had your beard cut, which was different, and you had no green screen on your t-shirt. So it was just everything about you looks so different right now. I don't know what one of these things to call out in this room of 13 people. Maybe none.
More real. It's nice having changes and everything.
I like it.
Yeah, I did the same thing, although more extreme.
It's something about
when I see myself, I feel like I look like I'm 20 now. I'm like, who is that guy? Freaking me out.
You do look a lot younger.
Yeah,
wow.
You always have different facial hair, though, a little bit. It's
yeah,
like
constantly.
It's like the facial hair
Never
changes and the hair.
It.
So it's like you always have a lot going on too. I like it. I like the change of the hair and facial hair. If I could grow facial hair, I would have Elvis chops sometimes. I would do Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah. That'd be hard though. That's a lot to manicure. Like I commend you.
I don't want this, but I would do the little Charlie Chaplin.
The almost Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah, where I'd be like, this is Charlie Chaplin. What are you, a racist? Nazi?
And then also wear your you know, whatever we call the swastika. Maybe it's still just called the swastika when it's the spiritual, you know, Big Dipper instead of whatever. Which both were actually, I'll just say that for the Nazis. Like, I mean, they were representing the Big Dipper and it was a spiritual symbol to them as well. So I'm not mad that they used it. But anyways, have that too. And then just fight with people.
Yeah, you could see. You're like, perfect.
Yeah.
So, Jim, one of the things I was hoping you would give us a little bit of more insight on was in our private chat. I was observing a lot of interesting symbolism in some of how the the demolition of these Georgia guidestones was being shown to the normies on the TV. Are you down to get into that a little bit?
I could talk about it a little bit, I guess. Yeah. Let's see. I think I saw a video of it being demolished, like the minute that it was struck down by whatever it was, the lightning or missile. It's really hard to say because it was like such an up close camera angle that you didn't really see anything beyond the monument. It was really conveniently cropped, so you couldn't tell what was going on. But yeah, it happened at 4:03 and 33 seconds a.m. So the first thing I thought was the 3 minutes and 33 seconds.
I'm gonna be on brand here and show my phone. I'm like, is that it? That's the moment, right? Let's see.
That's the moment.
It was 3:33.
3:33
Local time.
And that's the chaos. That's a chaos number. 333 is Koronzan. Koronzan.
There it is.
I know exactly what it is.
What is it?
It is a bunch of conspiracy theorists / rednecks / smart enough to know what to do. And they got themselves drunk and they had fireworks. And they were like, I bet you we could make something and shoot it at that motherfucker and put a hole in it. Like, I bet you we could knock it down was their goal. They're like, how hard would it be to knock it down? We probably only have to hit it in one spot. But I just think it would be an easier to accomplish than people think it is. To make a cannon or some kind of missile out of fireworks. My uncle was in Vietnam and he used to make his own fireworks all the time. And sometimes he would stick like half stick of dynamite in a bottle rocket.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was in Redneckville. You know, anywhere in the Rockies, you can find some dude, that guy in junior high that can teach you how to do that. Like, oh, you need you need blasting caps? Hang on, I got something here. I found in a mine somewhere, you know.
Don't you think fireworks are an outlandish amount expensive because they're a useful commodity?
Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah, gunpowder itself.
That's a good
course.
point.
They have to be specially handled.
Yeah, you were talking about it the other night. When we were kids, man, we would buy a gross of bottle rockets for like, I don't know, your pocket change. Like a gross, 144.
And it's not because we're 100, okay?
Yeah, well, I get that a lot, but I seriously, kind of, almost.
You know, my experience on the 4th when doing my duty as the able one to light off the explosives that my dad bought. The weirdest, but also not weird or surprising at all thing that happened was multiple fireworks fountains that I lit actually malfunctioned and fired exploding balls of, gunpowder or whatever the hell it is directly at the audience. And it wasn't once, it wasn't twice, it was like 4 times. And it constituted half of the things that I lit that were that you would call like a big display fountain type thing that actually shot in the direction of the fuse directly back at, where you would be running away towards. And I couldn't help but wonder, like, why are we letting China sell us explosives without like any real regulation when they think that the CCP wants to kill us and take our shit
Openly,
what
in policy, written. Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing here?
Like, let's let them control our infrastructure too. Let's sell them all our best land. What else? Let's let them give us all our medical supplies and then create possibly something that causes us to need them. Whether from
Lindsey-
the infrastructure or like a pathogen. Could be either, right? Could be both.
Yeah, we even gave him Tom Hanks.
We did.
in that movie. Yeah, like
What?
that war movie. It's like a totally AI, or I don't know if it's AI, but the whole movie was CGI pretty much. And
Polar Express. That's a horrifying movie.
that's a horrifying movie.
I've never seen it. Thank God.
Me either. And I'm obsessed with Tom Hanks. like
And, like-
obsessed and not
Like
a
how
good way.
horrible he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the deal with Joe versus the volcano?
I've never seen that either.
I have to pull out my don't make me get my spider web of Tom Hanks out.
So
But
Lindsey,
ask me about it another time.
okay, we'll do this again. Lindsey, how many ways would you say, like, a Woogie can be kind of anything, right? Like, it's kind of a formless energy. Is that what you would call that kind of
Is
experience?
it formless?
I mean,
Is it
I've
always
But
seen.
it
formless?
takes form.
No, it takes form. So most often I would see it as lights, and like Cheney described, like sometimes they would turn into multiple lights at once. Sometimes it would be scattered across the whole sky so quickly and so many that like there's no way there's just like 2,000 Woogies up there and they all flashed just at the right time to make it look like they were sparkling together, right? Like, so that's happened. I've seen them in the daytime appear as jets, as commercial airline planes, and as Cessnas. I've seen them change in daylight from a Cessna to a commercial plane. So they could take any form they want. I've seen them.
That is interesting. Let me just weigh in that once myself and my buddy Kurt were standing on my front porch in my house, and it looked like a plane. It looked exactly like a plane was flying towards us, but it was way too low. Like it was
They like
taking
to
up.
do that too.
It was way too low. I was like, this can't be happening right now. And then as it was swooping overhead of us, it literally did like a Transformers, like the robot car Transformers thing, and like and changed shapes. And it had multiple colored lights on it and everything. Anyway, I
Yeah,
didn't really know what to make of it.
that's
That was a long time ago.
That's these as far as I'm concerned, and they're like the one that I saw turn from a Cessna into a commercial airliner or vice versa. I don't remember which direction the change went, but it was just instantaneous. I was just looking straight at it, not blinking. One minute it was a Cessna, and then the next minute it was second it was a commercial plane. And I've seen them come down and take form as a being, which ridiculously enough was a little green man. It was literally this big, glowing, and he could move things. So he was physical, or he had the ability to affect physical reality because he moved the grass aside to come through and be like, hey. It was like
That's
Cheney was
in this
saying,
book, the
I
Andrew
was like,
Collins
you can
book.
come down if you want. And then they were like, okay. And it came down and like peeked through the grass. And I was like, okay, that's enough. Bye-bye. Like, we're done
he
here.
gets into the little people in this book too, like how
Oh,
the little
wow.
people fit into this. So that's interesting you said that.
He tiny little people. Like this was little people. Like he was literally probably baby at 2 inches or something at most. And he was smiling and happy and nice, but I just was like, I don't know if I'm really ready for this right now. Like my cigarette's gone anyway, so I'm gonna go inside.
So they're tricksters.
There definitely can be very tricksterish, yeah. Especially in that way we were just talking about with the devil, where they're like, oh, well, maybe it's time for you to confront this. And you're like, I didn't really want to do that. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so let me just tell you this experience, and let me see what Lindsey Scharmyn thinks, because this is the perfect audience right here. So, okay, I had an experience where I was trying to kind of, in that purposeful meditation kind of thing, call out to whatever it is, the mystery. And I was kind of exploring this idea that, of if aliens are there, we can connect with them, essentially telepathically, right? I mean, if everything is a spirit, and we believe in kind of every sentient being comes from source, right? Or has some sort of connection, that means we have a connection too. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this hardcore meditation and see if mantis people are real, right? So I do this, and I'm in a bar, and it's like one of those old 70s sunken bars. If you know, like everything's like red vinyl.
I
and
saw it
everything-
as soon as you said it. I was like, I think I've been in this bar with you or something. Like this is like in my head all of a sudden.
Well, maybe, man, maybe.
Who knows?
Because it was one of those things where they sat me down. It was like it was one of those things where, okay, bud, we have to have a conversation in like kind of a Switzerland environment, like a neutral environment. And as a kid, I knew bars well. I was in a lot of bars as a kid, and all those old seedy, dark, nasty red vinyl and dark wood kind of bars, and they're like, okay, this is, and I realized, I'm like, oh, this is the kind of place I've been before. But then like they're calling me in, like a barkeeper's like, come on in, sit, have a seat, right? And there are people over here talking, just kind of like observing me. But as we're talking, these people, their faces kind of change into this mantis kind of thing, and we keep talking, and I'm like, so is this how you actually look? And they're like, well, not really, but this is how you're experiencing it right now, kind of thing. And so I'm thinking that was when you and I had a conversation once where there's the my lab kind of abductions, and then there's a spiritual kind of alien thing. Like it's something completely different. And when you said that totally made sense in that experience right there, because you felt it. Whereas with other ones, there's not the exchange of spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's definitely true that especially in that space where it's like this spiritual inner sort of space that, the way something appears to us is coming specifically through our lens. So not that we can't also see things that are more objective than that too. So when they're saying like, this is how we look to you, there's a couple reasons, right? Like that could be because you, Gordon, had asked to see a mantis and something came to you and was like, yeah, okay, I'll be that for you right now.
Right.
And it also could be because they're objectively like, that is the mantis people coming through and this is what they look like. Or it could be that there is a energetic role or, energy that we've attributed to mantis people that you were connecting with as well. Like, so, and those things seem to be somewhat objective too, like we were saying earlier. So I also had a mantis experience. I didn't call for it. It just happened in meditation. And I had been trained actually to fear them before, because there's like this whole thing in UFO culture where the mantises can be bad or something. So I had that like previous experience. But when it came to me, I just can tell now, just like you can see auras or you could just feel like the vibe, like you just know what is good and what is bad and what is whatever tricky and what you have to be careful with and all of that. So I knew it was a friend, and it came and it was like, I'll clean your shit up here, like your head. You got a lot of weird ideas and stuff. Like if you want, I can like help you get some of that out. I was like, cool, go for it. And they literally went through my head like a filing cabinet and like threw some shit out and like put some new things in. And I could tell it was all these like ideas and concepts and mental structures that I was done with and had been done with, but like couldn't quite like let go of completely, like being afraid of mantis people or shit like that, where like I knew better now, but it was just still in there because of habit. And like that's what they were taking out, and they were like adding in the things that I knew were true too, but I just hadn't quite been able to like live it or like integrate it fully yet. It was all beautiful and it was all by my choice. And then I found out later that is one of their jobs, for the people who don't hate mantis people. One of the things mantises do is that, like, they help you update your mental constructs and release old ones and, rise into new ones or whatever. So I do think there's like this objective mantisness. And even that, though, I'm like, well, still as a whole of humanity, we could have created that archetype and put it onto whatever that energy is. Like in its truest form, is it a mantis shape? Maybe not, maybe whatever. So even that level of objectivity is like not as objective as what I'm trying to say. And hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I said that well. I don't know if I did or not.
Yeah, no, I kind of understand. I mean, yeah, there's definitely was an upgrade kind of thing that happened, or at least another level of understanding. Because I mean, anytime we interact openly with any of that stuff, we're gonna, if we're authentic about it, I think we're gonna come out with a understanding and not react in fear.
Yeah. Well, and that authentic piece is like Chance was saying earlier too, like you have to be honest with yourself. So, when I started interacting with any of these things, like I'm not going to be like, oh, holy light in the sky, like la la la, right? I'm just like, oh, hey, like what's up? Are you cool? Or like what? Like a very casual, actually, but also reverent in that I'm like, wow, thank you, Mantis guy. Like, holy shit, I really appreciate that. Whatever just happened felt really good. And I just feel like I released so much stuff and I feel so much better now. And like, I still give love and appreciation and honor, but it's not this like pretend, let's go through the rites and the rituals and the steps and let's like bow down 65 times or whatever. And I just think they appreciate that. I think they're like, oh God, now we have to like wait for you to bow 50 times or whatever. Like, can we just like get on with it? Or I don't know. I just think they're way more appreciative. They know they can see through all our shit anyway, right? Like we're not hiding from anybody out there in the spiritual dimension.
Especially if we're talking about beings that are plasma entities that don't have the meat suit in the physical density that we carry around. Not that I have a problem with the meat suit. The meat suit is awesome. It is
awesome.
like
it's high technology.
Exactly. I think so. I think that it's high technology. It was meant to be like a terminal for accessing the Akashic record through.
Yeah.
Some think it's the highest technology.
That the most recent book that I think I have it here. That's what they talk about. That the body is like this technology. That it is the Akashic record technology. So you agree with them in that. And that's in this book.
I realized that from
holy.
doing the tunings with people is that, well, if like, how else would this information be coming through? If my body can access ether anywhere non-locally and get information from someone else's body ether, then there would be no limit to what information from the ether, or what is also called Akashic record, the universal ether, my body could tap into. And the only limitation is the language with which I communicate to my body. And the system of tuning that I do is like literally a specific language that only pertains to talking about energy centers and emotions and flow in someone else's body. But if you were able to come up with some other language system of a sort that gave you the ability to ask deeper questions of the all, and have a way to understand that you are being communicated back with it. I believe that all psychic powers are basically derived from someone knowing how to communicate with their body on some level, even if they don't know that that's how they're doing it. Their body is pinging the universal ether.
And that all of them are the same things. Like people who do remote viewing are like really sure that they're not doing like psychic woo-woo shit. And then like psychics aren't doing remote viewing. And then like clairvoyants aren't doing either of those two things. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're all doing the same thing. So if people are like, are you a medium? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not in the classic sense of the word, but like have, dead people come to me to give a message to someone. Like, yeah, that has happened. So they're like, oh, you're a medium. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, I wish we didn't even have any of these words. I wish we just like understood that all of it is like you're talking about. We're just communicating with the etheric. The end. Whatever ways you like to do it, that's the way you like to do it.
I advise people don't categorize yourself as medium. Like if you get messages from people who are deceased, that's one thing, but don't like make that your box and then go live in it, because it's something bigger that you're tapping into, and don't limit yourself to just that one version of how it can.
You're large.
Unboxable.
Not just medium.
Double extra large. Hey,
My dad has this hilarious joke. He always tells everybody he meets like 3 times.
Sorry, that was a dad joke.
Yeah. He's like, hey, did you hear about the escaped psychic midget who has been going around and robbing convenience stores with her mind powers? The police are saying that there's a small, medium, at large. And my dad tells that joke to everybody. I've told that joke on a Vibe Rant before. But
Oh my gosh, you're gonna slowly
I'm
do
like my
that.
dad, yeah.
Inadvertently,
We
but
all
you're gonna be
slowly-
like,
I
my
made the
dad
choice.
always tells the joke. But I'll be like, my friend Chance always tells me a joke that his dad always tells him.
Yeah, once he gets a good one, he just sticks with it.
Why fix it? It's not broke. I wanted to say too, when Cheney was talking about like, I'm gonna need you to believe, like I'm gonna need you to believe in me or just believe in general.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much easier that way. This is true too. And I wonder if you guys have experienced it when you're doing like readings or healings on people. Like some people just come into it and they're like, they're not sure that they trust that something important is going to happen or that this is real or whatever. Or they come in specifically to be like, oh, this person's fucking lying and I'm going to prove it, like, or whatever. And that it still works. Something still happens. Like I still get messages for them or healing still occurs for them or whatever it is we're doing, but it's so much harder. It's so much less clear and it just doesn't like flow as easily. And I'm like, this is not me. This is not my fault. Like, I'm going to need you to believe like a little bit harder than this. If you want more, if you don't, that's cool. Come in skeptical and get what you can. But the more you're like invested in it, trusted, it's just like anything else. I think manifestation, I feel like is the same. The more you're like, yeah, that's going to happen, the more likely it's going to happen. I don't know how to get better at that, but like if anyone out there can get better at that,
Wanna know
that's a
my
good
trick?
idea. Yeah.
Well,
Lindsey-
my last client said specifically at the beginning, I'm skeptical of this, but I wanted to see, so they're skeptical, but not fully blocked, right? I mean, why would you pay money if you were like, this is not going to work? But they did say skeptical. So I don't know, maybe you have something like this you do as well, but at the beginning of every session, I specifically state the full intention of what we're about to do and make sure that they like affirm their agreement with the intent. And so we almost like, I mean, it's like we create a verbal contract right there. This is what we're doing. This is how it's going to work. And, I have like a whole spiel I give. And then at the end, they're like, and I'm like, agreed? And they're like, yes, I agree. And to me, that is key to the whole thing.
Yeah, that is very key.
Lindsey did a show called Surrender is a Superpower that is amazing. And now I know this is true. When you did a blessing on me, we talked beforehand, we arranged this, you're going to relax and, you talked me through this, and it is amazing, mind blowing that we can do this kind of thing remotely and have like really serious connections that is felt in your body, in your whole nature reacts when you do have that kind of surrender to it.
Yeah.
And that's when you're allowing, like you always say, it's not you doing the healing, it's them doing the healing. And that's what is actually enacting it, is that person's surrender for themselves to do it themselves, correct?
To allow it in and to let it heal themselves. Yes. Which I think is actually key to most people. If you want to heal yourself, it's the same too, right? Like you have to surrender to whatever you conceive of that stuff as, etheric, spiritual, light, like source, whatever. And you have to let it come in. And you maybe even have to tell it where to go. And then like, now you're healing yourself. But people have an easier time often having faith in someone else than they do in themselves. And I totally understand that. I needed how many shamans and healers and teachers and spiritual and and synchronicities and all these things along the way before I finally was like, okay, I'll do this for people. took me like decades, right, to trust myself to do that. So I understand, but I totally believed in those people, and that's why they were able to give me what they gave me, that eventually led to me being able to then share that with other people. So I'm not saying anyone should feel like bad if they're not just like able to heal themselves or whatever. Like that's fine, but you do want to move ever that direction where you are trusting more and more in yourself and inviting that in and surrendering to that and allowing it to be. It is really interesting how much we resist just being loved. And when people, I mean, a large percentage of the time when I work with people, no matter what we're doing, they'll just start crying. And then they'll be like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like, dude, let it go. Let it out. Like, this is the healing. Good.
That's
like,
what it looks like.
Yeah. And it's because we have been so rarely loved and so rarely allowed ourselves to receive love. And how loving is it to receive a healing or a session or whatever? Like, it's so loving. And when your allies and guides come in and have these messages for you and they're so loving and you feel that, it's like, yeah, you're going to cry, especially if you haven't let the love in that frequently or haven't had that much love presented to you in your life. So it is, you are healing yourself, but it is the love or the source or whatever you call it that is doing it too.
So on the surrender thing, part of the agreement that I was describing, the verbal contract, as I say, that higher self of me and higher self of the client are actually guiding the whole, or we're asking the higher selves, or it's really the same higher self, it's universal ether, to guide the whole process and to take over for the process. Not that I'm giving up my autonomous control of my body vessel or anything like that, but just surrendering into a trust state that whatever I do will be the exact right thing that needed to happen. And however they feel, receive, or experience it will be the exact right way it needs to happen. So like part of the reason for that verbal contract is to surrender into the full trust and eliminate the doubt completely, that because the doubt can't exist if the agreement is that there's no wrong way that this can happen.
The eye of Newt. It has to exist. The mustard seed has to exist. It's like you have to believe. You have to believe in it regardless. Whatever it is you're doing, you have to believe in it. Like, I mean, I hope it's a good thing. I hope you're a good person doing good things. But whatever you're doing, you really have to believe in it. I think it's key.
It's super true.
Like belief and love. And I do think a little trick sometimes with myself. I'm like, when I'm with other people, I'm like, treehouse with me, bitch. Like, stop. Like, we're 10 years old. We're hiking in the woods. We're climbing a tree that we built this tree house in. Hang out with me for a minute. I need you to just have that brain. I know it's still in there. Let's vibe. Like, it has to be a whole different, like, come on, playtime. Sometimes you have to shake them a little, like, playtime. I need you to believe me like this. Like, we're going to go lay in the backyard and we're going to see a UFO. And you're going to be like, holy shit, Janie, I never seen a UFO. But I need you to believe me right now.
Yes. I love that. You're like, let's go back to preconditioning you.
Yeah, we all, I just have to be like, come on, it's playtime. Let's go stare at the stars. Like, get out of this, whatever this is for us, this adult life and all this conditioning, whatever age you are, you're just that far conditioned. But somewhere before any of the technology, you were playtime. You're Playtime McGee. And somewhere in that is your real imagination. And somewhere in that is like the key.
Playtime McGee is the key. Yo, I know Jim's got thoughts in that noodle up there underneath his cool hat. What are they?
Yeah. So first off, what did you call them? Bogies?
Woogies.
Logies.
Woogies.
Woogies. I have
yeah.
seen so many of these things, and they are so cool. When I first had my UFO experience, my very first one, I meditated and I wanted to see a UFO, and eventually one came and it was really close, and that blew my mind. For years, I was never the same, still never will be the same. But later on in life, because of that experience, I moved out to the country to a place where I could see all the stars. And I used to go out like every night that I could, and I would just stargaze for hours and look at everything and try to like create an opportunity where I would see something. And like a lot of times stuff would just show up. Like one time I was out building a chicken coop, and it was like 10 or 10:30 at night, and I was aware of all the stars around me, and there's like this really bright planet is what I thought it was, and it was like right off of my side, and I was just looking at it, looking around. I wasn't really looking at it. I was like kind of half looking at it with the peripheral vision, and all of a sudden it goes and like flies away. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I don't know what that is, but like it was special and it was meant for me. And then another time I was outside just like meditating on seeing something, and I closed my eyes and I tried to do like the thing I originally had done. It was like a deep meditation where I built an Eiffel Tower over my head in the thought realm. And I was in the thought realm, like I created like an overlay map of all reality as far as I could see in the thought realm. And it was all there, like sort of like Tron, like electric outlines of things. And I was sending out the message out of the Eiffel Tower, and all of a sudden, like, blam, there's a huge explosion, and all the lights went dark in the whole street. Like the right next to my house, right in front of my house, there was a transformer, and the transformer blew right at that moment, and all the lights across the street and all the way up the street on this side went black. And the power was out for like almost a day. It was like into the next day. I mean, my house was on the other side of it, so like that part was still light. It creeped me out. It was like was something sneaking up on me and showing me something? Like, most definitely there's power. Like,
it's like we feel that this world is so mundane and everything's the same every day, but what are we asking for? Are we asking for something different? Like, are we actually asking? Are we saying the words? Are we setting the intention? Or are we just getting up and being like, all right, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to do that today. And it's all the same things that I've always been doing, and it's a cycle on repeat. Be careful what you wish for. That advice holds true, but what we ask for, we receive. That is spiritual truth.
it's like going into a deep psychedelic trip and trying to talk to entities, but not having anything to say or anything to ask them. And they just show up and they're like, okay, why
did you
are we
summon us?
here? Yeah. And they're like, see ya. And then shit goes downhill.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it too. I used to ask them, like, why me? Like, why aren't you doing this to other people? And, obviously they were, and they said so, but they were also like, I mean, nobody's asking for it. Nobody wants it, actually. And so they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't like it. They wouldn't want it. So why would we do it? And I was like, yeah, dude, it's that simple, isn't it? I'm not special, except in maybe that I, like you were just saying, Jem would like ask questions. I have things to ask. Like, I have a conversation to have.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
And they're very happy to answer.
Very.
And always answer, like, not necessarily always is it something you will understand. And it's hard to say whether or not. Sometimes it feels like it could be a trick to trip you up, but always mind-blowing for sure.
That's pretty crazy. I love it.
Awesome.
Wow.
See, we gotta watch this guy. He'll just like sit here and be quiet, but there's amazing shit going on in there. The brain horrors of his.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I think
like, I
that we
get
should
that. People are like, oh, sorry.
Well, I want you to finish your thought for sure, but I want to maybe go around the horn and give everybody a chance for closing thoughts and move our way towards a wrap up here. We'll just get together again right away on the Weaving Spiders Webs channel, but then Jim can drive and I can do art.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say to that people will say, and maybe this has happened to you guys too, but they'll be like, well, it'll be like years later and I'll like say or do something, right? Like what Jeb just shared or whatever. And they'll be like, well, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, what was I supposed to like be like, hi, my name is Lindsay. So one time I built an Eiffel Tower and blew up a transformer. Like, what do you mean? Why did I tell you? Like, you never asked. And so like, yeah, I'm not going to meet you and then just list all the craziest shit that's ever happened to me or like what I do for a living or whatever. I'm just going to be a normal person. Like, I think that's actually normal, but people act like you like tricked them or something. And I'm like, no, I mean, this is what like that. And that's actually one of my main points that I always want people to realize and remember. Like 100% of people are amazing and beautiful and unique and have crazy fucking experiences and amazing thoughts. And like, and they don't always know how to share them or like that they even had them or that it even is cool or something. But like, that's what life is like. You can be curious about any of that. Everybody has something. It's pretty cool. Not to diminish anything either, but just like, yeah, maybe you should start by assuming that everyone you meet is got fucking cool ass shit going on. That would be cooler than assuming everyone you meet is just some normal, weird, I don't know, cyclical NPC. Like, that'd be cooler.
Yeah, man. I always thought that I was like the weirdest guy until I started talking to Lady Lindsey Scharmyn, and then I started listening to that guy Freeman Fly. I'm like, oh, those are the
My
kind of
people.
weirdos. These are my people.
Totally.
Yeah, I get used to it, weird stuff happening, but because it happens all the time if you're looking out for it. But it's so still wonderful, you know. It's still amazing. Like last night, I was walking my dogs, and it was pretty late, like almost 2:30, and I was walking down the sidewalk, and it was an extra dark night, and it was kind of like weird and creepy feeling, and I kept seeing something dark in front of me, like a extra dark shadow. Like I kept thinking it was a man, like hiding, like they were over by his car, and then they kind of moved like they were hiding behind the car, and then I saw it move this way, and then it tripped a motion sensor light at this house turned on. It was
That
freaky.
sounds like shadow people.
Yeah.
Sounds like a djinn.
Yeah,
That is creepy. You're right. That is so creepy.
Yeah.
I've seen that in the desert, Jim. And
Have you?
It was kind of it's like a flowy, it was almost serpentine, like kind of flowing through the desert and around through some cholla. And when I recognized it, I knew exactly it was not just a critter. You know exactly. It's not a 3D thing. You're seeing it with some other kind of thing. You're experiencing it differently than you would a piece of matter, I guess. And like when they explain say smokeless fire, totally makes sense. Or what is it? Is it smokeless fire? Is that what they call it? Yeah. Yeah, totally makes sense.
It was a weird night. The energy was really weird, and like all the I did this walk all the time, and all the dogs were on edge, like at people's houses. They were all barking, and then I walked past the river on the way home, and it was like right by this same area, and the geese all lived down there, and the geese were making this really alarming sound.
Wow.
Like a really deep, like mark, 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 like warning each other, and they've never made that sound. Usually they're all totally silent. So it was like it was pretty eerie. It felt like something was around watching or moving around, and I kept thinking, did they loosen the veil with CERN today?
Yeah.
Oh, it feels like something was around you.
Yeah, it feels dark.
And it was heavy enough of an energy to trigger the motion sensor light, which is like very odd. Like heavy of enough of an energy to trigger that.
Yeah, it freaked me out.
What do you do? What do you do in those moments where something dark is around?
I just keep my eyes open. I'm not really. I mean, I always keep in mind that whatever it is, if it's dark, it's gonna feed off of any negative energies or fear or anything. So I'm pretty much like, it can't hurt me, like unless you agree
to it.
Yeah, if you run from a predator creature, then it will chase you. But if you just stand there like it's no big deal, it's like, okay, all right, well, I guess you're not prey, and it'll move on by. So
Yeah.
like a big cat in the woods, you know, if you run, you're dead. But if you just kind of stand there and like, what?
What? Yeah. This is my fucking woods. You're
Yeah.
in here with me.
Yeah. Then you're-
Yeah, that's a whole different energy. You get all cat at it. You pounce on it. Scare the shit out of it.
You kind of do. That works though. Acknowledge them. Acknowledge that I recognize you're a thing. These are my boundaries.
Yeah.
And other than that, you can fuck off.
Yeah, I think no is a very powerful word, even in lower dimensional. I think you're allowed to tell spirits no all the time.
Oh,
And you're so high vibe compared to it that it's like you
That's what the
almost
te-
can
that's
turn
the
around and be
challenge,
like, you
That's
don't
the
even
test they're
want to
asking you
mess
to
with me.
I like one of my teachers was like, oh, I let him stay. And then I start reading like scripture and, whatever. He's Buddhist though. So it's like Buddhist scripture, but whatever to them and teaching them because they need the light too. And I'm like, you're such a badass. I'm like, get the fuck out of my house now. And then I'm like, la, 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 sing and dance. Everything's fun. And they're like, oh, this is boring.
It's not a buffet if you're happy.
Right.
How come every time we talk, Lindsay, it ends up entities?
They're just all asking to come through. They're like, now tell them about me. I have a story to tell too. Like, I try to tell people this. I'm like, they want attention too. They want to be part of things too. They want to like be able to interact and share and love. That's their like not whole. That's a lot of their experience. So if you want and you call, like, they're coming.
There it is. Ask and you shall receive. It's we're totally primed and ready to see beyond.
Yes.
So, okay, everybody, give your plugs to all your stuff. Let's start with Lindsay, then Gordy, Cheney, Jim. Go around the horn here.
You can find everything I do at rogueways.org. That audiobook that we were so excited about for Sine Curve of Aeons is going to be on Audible any moment now. Any moment. It will be there for you to listen to. We will both be announcing that. And all my books are available on my site. The Orgone that I make is available on my site, rogueways.org. And you can also connect with me for spiritual services of various kinds at rogueways.org. You can grab those medicine bags Gordon has. And I also just started this new teaching platform on rogueways.com/thinkific. It is linked to on the site. If you're on the site, rogueways.org, and you just scroll a little bit down, it's one of the big, huge, fat buttons. So if you want to go check out the courses there, you can head over and see the different things I have up. I think I have meditation, working with your chakras. It's sort of those are for kind of beginners, and then tarot for beginners. And I have a psycho-spiritual protection, also for people who don't have any psycho-spiritual protection to speak of. And so they're all aimed at people who are pretty fresh. And I'll have some higher level stuff coming out as well soon. So thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Always
love
such a pleasure.
hanging out.
Always such a pleasure talking to you, Lindsay.
You guys too.
I guess my thing is the owls on Instagram, Gordy_TWO. It's Gordy with a Y too. GORDOG. Oh my God, I can't even spell my own fucking name.
Spell quickly. No.
Exactly.
Jordy
Two choose. Underscorps. Daryl Bang. Anyway, I posted some owls today on my Instagram. Also, every Saturday night on Weaving Spiders, along with Jim and Cheney many times. Lindsay, you should stay up later to adjust your whole rhythm so that we can have you on Spiders.
It's like the one night in my head, Fridays and Saturdays are like the two nights that I'm like, I'm not doing any shows. So that's just the way it is right now.
Like your weekend.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Although I love you all and thank you for the invite.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
If you ever just want to hang with us on a Vibe Rant, since that's a little closer to your normal sleep schedule, to hit me up.
And it's on like a work day too. So
Yeah, or flow state after Vibe Rant. You're always invited there to relax, make some art, listen to some people read. It's pretty chill.
It is pretty rad. Every once in a while I catch
I
a
like
few
it.
minutes of it, but that's pretty much when you know for sure I'm asleep. That whenever that's happening,
Especially
like,
because
I'm like,
Vibrant keeps getting longer and longer. With
Summer hours, Vibe Rant.
yeah, that's
summer
right.
hours.
All right, Cheney, where they find you?
Oh, you can go to projectchaney.com and I'll be hanging out with Lindsey next week on Rogueways. And I usually hang out with the spiders as well on Saturday nights after fist fights.
And you've been getting pretty regular on the Vibrants. I love that. Keep calling in.
I
Keep
like
hanging
it.
out.
I seem to, as summer hours happen in Florida, I seem to get off early this night. So I'm like, okay. I'm so
Awesome.
excited that I get to catch the show live. Usually I just watch it on rerun.
That's awesome.
On syndication.
This is how old we are.
I know.
Rerun.
I
I'm
usually just
honored
watch
that
it on
you check out
VHS.
what
I
we
pick
do.
it up
Yeah.
from Blockbuster on my way home.
If you have the channel changer thing on the dial, then you can kind of get it in between the UHF and the VHF, and you stick a matchbook in there, and you get it kind of at the right area. You can
Gordy,
get
give me your
PBS.
tinfoil hat. I need it for the
Yeah,
antenna.
seriously, right? Exactly.
Well, my main announcement is that you've all been waiting for it. It's coming tomorrow night. Gordy, Gabriel, myself, we're going to do the next Moon Knight Decode, episode 4. It's going to be crazy.
And we're looking into the void, and the void is looking back.
Well said. Yeah, you should. If we'll probably have to bring some of our private thoughts that we've been having about just the whole thing in general to that conversation. But watch out for that tomorrow night, same time, 8 p.m. Central, and we will catch you all later. Jim, thanks for calling in as well.
Yeah,
Go
thanks
find
for having
Jim
me.
on Weaving Spiders Webs, right?
Spiders Webs, and also the Spiders Welcome Webs on Telegram. Is that what it's called? Spiders Welcome Web.
Yeah.
Telegram.
You know, if you get into one of the shows and you're in the live chat, somebody will link you if you want to join our telegrams. But that's where we are all staying in touch on a daily basis. It's a good place to be. If you're not on Telegram yet, don't avoid it just because you hate social media and everything it stands for. Telegram doesn't really have that vibe. And we actually connect, you know, it's really rad. But okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Watch out for our announcement that Lindsey's book is up as an audiobook. I hope a lot of you check it out and enjoy it. I certainly worked hard on it. Not nearly as hard as it would have been to actually write the thing, but love that
But
we got
still,
the collab, and we'll do it again.
It's
Labor of love.
awesome. It's awesome. I got to listen to it, the parts that you played.
It's cool.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody. Much love.
Much
Nighty
love.
night.
Love you all. Thank you.
Love you
Good
guys.
night.